Fuck your mom, scars, fuck moms.
The gang.
We want our money back. We want our money back. We want our money back. Bully the bastard, yeah. We want our money back. We want our money back. We want our money back. Yeah, want our money back.
Tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. Tell me by your name on the way like.
Ah shit, they're listening.
Oh no, do not.
Do not listen to our strategies. What strategies, then? We got nothing, then.
Shoot, run,
gotta-
shoot, help, heal.
We got them fooled in the fucking step one, dude. We don't even know what the fuck we're doing. How are they gonna know?
How would they know?
How would they know? They'll never know.
They don't know.
I fucking hate this chat, bro.
I wanna feel on your ass in Hawaii. Just picture reading.
Is all plan not playing?
I don't know.
It's not planned, sadly.
Damn.
Wait, what happened to them?
They're working.
Was bad timing working? I mean, yeah.
That's ass.
I
That's so sad, dude.
I'm surprised all the other teams are not missing days when they have to play 6 days in a week, dude. With
Yeah,
jobs.
that's what I'm saying too.
Like, we're doing good for now with the amount of people working jobs and shit.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. Starting in 2-3 minutes, any player is not in voice may be kicked.
God. And we're all three in voice. Nice. And we got EABCP118 here. Oh, no.
Hey, what's up?
CPI18 here. Does your mic? Do you think you can hear us?
He can.
Hey, dude. If you don't have a mic and you
Hey.
can't answer, all good.
Yeah,
I'll
why are
do
you
fist bumps.
in our channel but you're not talking to us, dude? Tell us
So-
who the song goes, dude. Where does the song go? Leak it.
Give us hot zone and beacon.
Yeah. He's poker facing.
He's just smiling right now.
It's 8. These motherfuckers stupid as shit, dude.
C note is not.
Okay, here you friend.
What the fuck was that?
I don't know.
Starting 30 seconds.
Starting
Ah.
26, 25, 24, 23,
go.
22, 21,
Okay, let's go. Well, you counting every
Ah.
fucking second?
4, 3, 2, 1. Go, go,
I don't
go,
think
go,
that's
go.
how 30 seconds go, dude.
No. It's fine. Go, 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 go. Mm,
3,
no.
2, 1,
Go.
5,
Go.
4,
Go.
3.
If I say go every single
Two.
time, I'll be right at one point. Go.
One.
Go. Now.
Go.
Now.
Null.
He said 10 seconds. No, that's someone else.
Now. Fuck! Are we on main broadcast there? I think we
59.
No, I don't think so.
58. Really?
What
But we have voice channel. We have voice channel thing, guy, in the Discord.
Yeah, because they have to
He's
keep
just-
our
he's-
POVs.
He's just making sure we're not shouting too much.
Yeah.
Hey,
we have
guys,
to
can you
keep
keep it down a little bit, please?
Yeah, keep it down, dude. Holy shit.
Sorry.
Sorted.
Sa.
Is Play Apex even going live today, dude? I don't even see the stream. I'm stream snapping, by the way. Yeah,
they
we're
got
not
1
on
minute
main.
delay.
We're not on main. Cringe! Best team not on main. No, wait, we are. It's C versus A. We are on main. Holy shit. We're C,
Oh.
we're not D. Why
Yeah,
do I keep
fucking idiots.
thinking
Oh
we're
my
D?
god, fucking cringe fucking bots. I need to change my roster,
We
man.
also got Shivan Patel, so of course we're.
Shiva Patel!
Yeah.
No, did you see them go crazy last yesterday?
Yeah. Sorry now.
That motherfucker was fucking screaming at a fucking butterfly flying by. That he was on point with the screams, dude.
Alright. Let's go, baby. I don't think we are contested.
I don't know. There's also 19 teams only, so the chances of us not being contested are better.
Yeah, there's 19 spots, right?
Yeah. I think more.
I actually don't know how many POIs there are in this game. Or in
This
this
map?
map.
Pretty sure just 20.
Hmm.
Or 19, but like there's like no name spots that are basically whole POIs.
Yeah.
2 of Solar is not connected. Kralek's not connected. 54 out of 60.
Damn. Alright. We
And I
started?
sleep, dude. Oh shit, quick ending. Let's go, dude. So like to see. Here we are again. Yet again, we sit here and we fucking get shit on by the match restart. 0 points first game. Good start. Everyone got 0, dude. Everyone got 20th, dude. How? Should have gave us a dub, dude, for free. Should have gave us a dub for free.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for the code. Look at Gnaska. Every time we have purples, it's restart.
G-Snake.
Added my chat. I'm not even reading chat anymore. I'm done. Close it. Who's posting boobs in the Pro League, dude? What is wrong with these kids, dude?
Motherfuckers, man. Back in my day.
Back
Really
in
got
my
banned for that.
day. Look at that fucking GIF from Cleve. That was a custom
Do we have
made
code?
boy, dude. Not yet, no. But look at that fucking GIF, dude, in the Pro League. You see that shit?
Which
That
one?
From
In
Cleve.
general?
From Cleve, yeah. No, in the match day 6.
Oh.
Cliche posted "Be quiet, Kashira," and custom made GIF for Kashira, dude. Look at Knaska's GIF. Ah, new code. Another one of those code that someone could just fucking guess, dude. Alright, get him, boys.
I'm in.
Is it only the Kralex bootcamp that has problems joining?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it's Solaris and Kralex. Solaris is also in some bootcamp. Ishin, you coming?
I'm here. Oh, I forgot to click.
Yeah, Solaris is in some shit bootcamp. They can get in games, and then at 80k Kralex also.
Damn it, dude. Dude, NRG yesterday, back to back to back, first place. They guaranteed hard chillin'.
They're fucking farming, yeah.
Fucking hard chillin'.
Oh, they won 3 weeks in a row?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's already guaranteed. Dude.
That's 75 points. There's no way you're not through after 75.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh no, 100%.
75?
After 6 days, I think if you win 3 out of 6 days, you're through, man. Like
Yeah, you should be through. You get 20 3 games, three times.
Yeah,
in a row
you
then.
should be in. Yeah, no matter what.
Wait, how much points does 20th get?
I don't know. 1. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Done 30 seconds.
No, I mean, I saw Zach tweet that they're guaranteed LAN, that they qualified, and they haven't even won 3 times like NRG did.
They're guaranteed.
Yeah, he said that they qualified for LAN because that was 4th day. There's 2 more days for them, I think. Or is it 1 more day? I don't know. 2 more days, 1 more day. And apparently, Zach said the C9 is already qualified.
Zach has 76 points.
Yeah.
There's
and
2 more
apparently-
days? Yeah. 76 is pretty good, I think.
What is their top 10 right now?
The top 10 is 42.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
34
that's just.
points in 2.
Yeah. They have to get 30 points, top 10. 30
Yeah.
plus points to kick them out. That's like
Yeah,
what, a
they
win
just
and
get
some
0.
dog shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're guaranteed at 75-ish, I think. That's the cutoff.
I think so too. I think 75 is a good number to think or go for. What is no wait? How much do you get for getting a top 10?
We got 13 points for 7th, so
How many points is it for top 10?
maybe 10.
Let me see.
It's live play on. We're playing no matter what this.
Yeah. Alliance got top 10 yesterday and they got 10 points. Okay, so
Yeah.
theoretically, no. What's top 5? I mean top 5. It needs to be top 5 because it's 2 different rounds every time. What do you get for top 5? 40.
I don't know,
Raz-
probably like 18-ish, something like that.
You get 15. So, yeah, no, what? It should be 90 points on average. You should have to go through.
That sounds
This
too
is
much.
like, I don't know. Maybe 90 is if you get top 5 every single time.
Sounds like too much.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, 70 something, I'd say.
75-ish
That does
cutoff.
sound bad,
Because
yeah.
it's some teams will not always get top 5 and not always win, and it's gonna balance
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
I'm gonna
I
give
feel
this
too.
to you since you're the god.
Yeah, I'm
So
just
we go
dropping instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, job instantly. And keep an eye. If
Yeah,
no one's
you got-
coming,
you-
I'm gonna insta scan.
Looking free, I think.
Look, behind us, 76 meters. There. Oh,
Yeah,
never mind.
we're
The
going
front
antenna.
wants us. Never mind.
Alright, I'm landing straight to beacon.
I'm going full left.
Yeah, top team. Yeah, I think we're good. I'm just going full right
really
then.
good. That's really good.
The Shin is gonna
I
hit
like that.
beacon by the time I even landed.
Same. Two teams in what's that called? The mill. Oh, it ends there.
It's solo Q-Goats and them fighting then.
Yeah.
They're landing mill.
I have a wingman for one of you.
I won't.
Yeah. If you can carry like a 301 from me or
I have
something,
a
I'll carry
301.
all. Alright, I'll carry wingman attaching for you and wingman ammo.
Okay.
I'm running rampage this round with PK.
It ends at them, right?
Rough. This is rough.
Ooh, that's like big thing right there. What's it called?
Yeah, we can play that big rock next to mill, yeah.
The big rock is
If we
cool.
can get it. I found a wingman.
Oh yeah. Dude, maybe a charge rifle if we get ammo.
Yeah, there's an 8-time scope if you want.
I got a 6-timer already. If we get charge rifle, oh I got one. Yo, we'll play the big rock then. Do we play big rock? I need to
Yeah,
know.
I don't know if we can get it though. That's the thing. I
Okay,
can't
yeah, we'll
guarantee
bully
that
him
we'll
off.
play it.
Alright, but the theory. On
In
paper,
theory,
we're playing
we'll
it.
play, yeah. I'm dropping this
Alright,
301 with a 3
Yeah,
times
don't
scope, man.
drop. I don't need it.
This 301 is juiced, man.
Yeah, I got juice charge rifle.
I have a juice rampage right now.
I don't know. Do we need to get a car up there?
Where are we gonna get a car?
True.
We need
There's
to
a
make
blue armor
bats
in the
now. Yeah, I'll get it.
Anyone
we need
need
to start
two
making
timer?
bats. No.
No.
We need to start making
Blue
bats
armor
now.
there. Blue armor there.
Yeah, I'll get the blue.
Yeah, I was making sure. You know.
Alright. Work on getting fucking shit ton of bats now. And then we move.
There. I got 3 bats.
Okay.
I'm dropping the 2-time scope if anyone needs.
I'm making bats. There.
I think I'm gonna make okay, waiting for you guys.
Dropping a
There,
bat.
you can do it here.
I'm grabbing this up and I'm making a
I'm
bag
gonna
of
go-
bats.
There's a bat right there.
Okay.
Alright, I'm gonna go look. Go up here. Look around. See if anyone's like rotating in from here.
Keep in mind, 2 teams fought mill. So we maybe can. But the team C-Note might play what we are. Does C-Note have a beacon? They do.
Yeah.
They might play what we want to play. Whatever.
Yeah.
Either way, we go towards mill now. I'm good. 4
Alright.
bats, 12 cells. Let's go.
I'm ready. I got 4 bats, 12 cells too.
Right.
20 cells, 3 bats.
Okay. We're good on mids. Let's go. Time to move.
Yeah.
Guns are wingman, peacekeeper.
Charge rifle, massive.
Rampage Mastiff. 3 times scope. I'm pretty stacked. I just need this purple stabilizer.
Okay. Well, I mean, you don't need it. I'm not gonna, but let's just say you
Oh, blue bolt.
do. Nice.
Oh, he just came.
Someone's flying in right now.
Yeah, keep
Oh,
going
where-
straight.
Are they landing there?
I don't know, man. They're not. This might also end here, but around
Yeah.
there. We just play from here.
You wanna play this rock, yeah?
From here, yeah. Below it and above it is what we want to play.
Okay.
We could even take that car.
Yeah. We can get a car up there, right?
Yeah, we can.
We
have
should
to
do that.
tune
100%.
it.
Alright, I'm taking the car then.
Okay, you take the
I
car
take it.
alone. Bubble it if you have to. Me and Tishin are going straight.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, go for
This-
that shit instantly. Driving over.
Someone just flew in front of us to mill.
Yeah, into the mill.
Okay, I'm getting
They're
some
flying mill,
grenades.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
they're
looks
mill.
like, yeah.
Yeah, we should be free. Should be free.
Okay.
Where should I place it?
On top somewhere. I have 5
Yeah.
fucking stars, bro. I'll give
Is this
you.
good?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is good.
We play below and above. So we don't let
Come on.
anyone go below us.
There.
We're fighting in mill right now. Okay.
Nah, it's sliding. Is this good, do you think?
This is
No.
a really good spot, right?
No, this is terrible.
Where do you want to put it?
Put it on the front here. Like
Oh,
maybe
shit.
here.
I just wanna-
Can I have your
Here?
Can I have your blue upper? Give me a blue upper.
Yeah.
Drop it down.
Here? But we can get shot from here though.
That's
Hello?
fine. No, we can't get shot from there. Look where I am. Look at my spot. If we
Oh,
get shot
yeah,
from
okay.
back, look how strong it is. And also, we can always drop down below us in the arch.
Yeah.
Is this POI unlooted? And there's the
Looks
care package
unlooted.
too.
It looks, yeah. But
We can bubble the car and go together.
Dude.
No, whatever. Sorry,
I don't-
shouting.
I want this
We have
beacon
good spot, we
later.
have good spot.
I want that
Yeah, I
beacon
feel like
later, maybe.
our spot is fucking... Can't throw this bitch out.
I
ping
don't
you
know-
if I see
People are
somebody.
rotating this way, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know where this is gonna end. I'm be real with you guys. I'm thinking it's probably like there's an ending in this choke where someone just died. Like literally right here.
There's also one that ends down here. And
People
we
up
can
here?
get this later.
You can get this damage on
Wall
this
drill.
guys.
Northwest, wall drill.
90, 102 on this guy. No.
I'm looking behind us. I'm watching them back. You guys take care of everything else.
I feel like I should put the car here instead. We
Just
can't
do
get
it
shot from
however
anywhere.
you want. Just
Yeah.
do it however you want.
Putting the car here. I think this is the best spot.
55
because
headshot, isn't
it blocks on everyone. I'm so scared it falls down or some shit.
You won't. Just don't fuck with it too much. There's a team right now on this beacon.
Yeah. If we stand here, we can't get shot from anywhere unless like they're standing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Okay,
Right
so
there.
I think possible endings. Like this team is holding a really good spot. I think there might be an ending around them, or it's
There
in
is.
this choke in the like around this water.
Also ending right here.
I know there's an ending literally in this water. Yeah, there's an ending on us, but like that doesn't seem very likely. But we'll see, I guess.
I feel like our spot's pretty good.
Yeah,
We're
okay,
good
so-
for now, and we can always go for another beacon if there's no one there. Or I could send a Shin in C-Note for the beacon.
They're Valkol thing here. I'm gonna shoot the Gibby. Oh shit. 37.
Where are they
Oh,
going?
I'm all set.
Reloading.
They're landing in the cave here.
Oh, the fucking the strafe and shit.
Okay, listen to me. This might sound crazy, okay?
Yeah.
What I'm about to say. I want to send Tashin all the way in C-Note to scan, and then he Valkyls back to us. Or even runs back to us. It's in 30
Yeah.
seconds. I think you should go, man.
Okay. Yeah.
Go for the beacon. If it's scary or if you see something like, if you think you're gonna die, just run and Valkyl back to us and save your life.
Yeah.
Fa-
I'm
fast
looking
as-
down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't say anything now.
Yeah. No talking at all, no. Shoot those for damage.
Oh yeah. Six damage off.
I'm getting
Okay.
a second Trident up there too.
Second trident as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Team here.
Yeah.
Zone.
Yeah.
Okay. Mill.
Do we play this later then? Can we just
Yeah.
we just play here, right?
Yeah, we fight for that.
Alright.
That's perfect. Actually.
That's in also. That's in
Yeah,
also.
we play
So we
binge and
just-
that.
Yeah.
We have to fight this team off. So this corner is
Yeah.
gonna be really good right here.
Mhm.
And this rock.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
we're gonna have 2 cars as well, so we can also bring cars over for cover.
How much do I have? Fuck. How much? I have 70 ammo.
Your charge rifle
Cool.
sucks actually for this zone.
It's fine. No, it's fine. I can fend people off and bully them.
Yeah, but if this will be a very close fight here. Close range fight.
Yeah.
Fuck, that 3-1 would have been better.
It's okay, it's okay.
We'll work with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll get some bunch of kills here. You know. You never know.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone down here. I can.
There
fucking
was
play
a
over here.
team around those like things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely fight for this, but we go late as possible because we have angles on that.
Yeah, and we can play this for a long
Yeah, we can
fucking
head
time
the
too.
fuck out of it. We want everyone from the right side to fuck off.
Yeah,
Like-
that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna save a lot of ammo, and I'm just gonna shoot them when they come.
Yeah,
I'm
everyone
gonna
from the
f-
right
I'm
side.
gonna shoot everyone from right side, yeah. And also, no one's playing this.
Yeah. The only problem is this team on height is gonna be maybe contesting us for our spot.
It's fine, it's fine. Purple armor, Ash, by the way.
Our spot should be a lot better than theirs though,
You
overall.
keep shooting. If you keep shooting, take my ammo.
Yeah, here. I'm just gonna shoot as much as I can. I'm gonna save like a whole mag for later. But other than that, I'm just gonna be shooting.
Oh, mag. That's nothing.
Yeah, like a whole 24,
Stack.
you know? Yeah, a whole stack. 50 flash.
I think.
He's one shot this guy.
Wait, who's shooting us from here?
Oh my god. There's team on there.
Yeah, this team. I didn't 41 purple, 35 blue.
Ooh, this guy's not looking so good right now. This guy's getting shot from the side.
Alright, this is gonna be crucial right here. This next minute.
Yeah.
Look at this guy fighting. Close range fighting here.
Wait. I'm looking.
They're in the building now. No longer can see.
Ah, 6. Flash.
Okay, so this is how it's gonna go. When we have to move, I think we're gonna take our cars.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. We can put the cars down here, yeah.
Yeah, we just send them there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, fucking sliding again.
This guy, bro. What did you want?
Kraber?
No, that's a
No,
Sentinel.
Sentinel.
Definitely won't. This team definitely might fucking contest us. Like a lot of teams
Yeah.
on the right side might contest us. We wanna shit on them. I have fucking 5 arc stars. Do you guys need?
2
I have
arc.
0. Give me some.
Give me some cell station or something. I'll give you some arcs.
You need more? Can you
No.
carry one more?
Yeah, I can carry. I got 17 now.
Got purple now. I'll save now. I'll save now. So I got enough for later.
Yeah.
Unless I see an opportunity for kills.
Someone just died in here.
Here, full team backstepping us.
Setting
Yeah.
the Q at them. We gotta fucking make them fuck off.
Yeah. Looks like they're running right side around. Yeah,
We
they're
can get
over here.
above them. We can get above them right now.
I can't
We
help
can
you
really
guys with that
fuck
fight
them.
right there. I can't help you guys with that fight that much.
Right below me. They're literally stuck. He's fucking cracked.
Behind you, behind you,
Fly,
behind
fly,
you,
fly.
behind you!
Asshole,
18.
asshole.
I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming.
54!
We should fucking kill them, honestly. Or force them away.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
guys are in terrible spot, man.
They're gonna shoot on the side.
Yeah, they were getting cracked like crazy.
They're gonna Valk ult out 100%.
Okay, good. Keep watching right side so no one's walking up the hill. Me and Tashin are gonna
The
watch the back.
wall
Yeah, they're Valk
holding.
ulting. Shoot
am I
the Gibby,
stuck?
okay?
I hit one for 60.
41 flash! Nice. We fucking pushed that. One hit purple. They're gonna bubble res. They can give ulted us. It's fine. Push up here.
It's fine, I'm pushing.
I'm pushing, boys.
We push in there. Guy, give me crack.
Cover you.
Give it that. Behind you. 100.
Nice,
Stop.
dude, here. I got bubble down for us.
I'm going up.
You good?
I'm good.
Fuck, I should've swapped weapon.
This is my only. Pick up as many medkits as you can. I have no medkits.
You both go up again, I loot. You both go up again.
Nah, I should loot.
Okay,
Let
man.
him loot. Let him swap a weapon. Mind the swap a weapon. Fuck a charge rifle.
I need to swap too, you know?
Yeah, you go after him. But he has a charge rifle. That's fucking ass.
Yeah, let him.
Good vibe, boys.
Getting fucking shot in the back right now. 2 sec.
Not
Betting.
bad. I'm
I don't
gonna
have a
shoot
lot of
those guys
light.
off you. How much is there?
What's it called?
30 seconds, man.
Not a lot though.
I'm coming
Can I
down
go
to
up?
fucking
I
loot.
got.
There's a Tashin, there's a wingman here.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah, wait, give me 2 seconds. Sashin, stay there for like 2. There, oh no, wait, you go.
15 seconds, bro. He has to go. Man.
Yeah.
I picked
I
up
didn't
all
see
the
the
heavy
timer.
ammo, Tashin. And you also have heavy, right? It's on one of the
Yeah.
boxes. Just be careful. I have no medkits. Do you have extra medkits?
I have 2.
Can you carry an arc?
The
or
Valk
something?
ulting? I'm dropping. I got 3 arcs. I'm good.
Okay. I'm
Someone
dropping.
vote to
I'm
east.
dropping 40 heavy here.
We're taking the
We
cars
take the
down.
cars and go. Yeah. Go. Come, man. Take another car.
I'll take the other car. I'm putting the car here.
Yeah. Watch down the hill.
Look behind us. I'm looking.
We also need control of this choke here.
Yeah, we do.
I'm gonna get on top of this rock. You guys look
Perfect.
down the hill.
All behind. Good. Sashin, go help him.
Yep.
Yeah, they're here. They're on the hill. I'm have really good angles on them.
We
They're
can
not
get a
gonna
car up
push.
there too.
Nah,
Just
it's
keep
risky.
going. Just keep going. Alright, if the arc started, everyone gets hit by it.
These guys are getting fucked right now, I think. Look here.
Yeah, no one's coming behind
Yeah,
us.
this
No
rock.
one's coming behind us.
Okay, perfect. Right here. And right here. These guys are going away from us. I have 7 bats if you need. And
I
we
have
can
6.
ash.
No worries. I have it all.
We can ash ult on the roof later.
They're crossing
Look at
over
this.
here.
Okay. We're gonna ash ult for the roof on the left side here. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to walk to this roof and then ash ult. There's a team
Yeah, there's
contesting
no
it
one
though.
playing left side here.
Yeah, but there's a
See
team
right there, too.
contesting the roof, I think.
Yeah. Are you guys holding? Are you guys looking at these guys here?
Yeah, they're moved across the river, right, Tashin?
Oh shit.
These
Yeah,
guys?
they're here. On my ping.
Okay.
I'm moving up then. I'm moving up too.
Look at this raid portaling out. I'm tethering the portal.
I'm getting the ult.
One is knocked. It's a solo raid behind these boxes
Yeah,
here.
I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna
Hitting
shoot.
him. He got hit. I hit him.
30.
Flash. He died.
He died to someone else.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
The Gibby took it.
Okay, I'm getting closer to the building here.
The
I'm getting
Gibby
roof.
over here. The Gibby over here. They wanna take it.
Yeah, I'm getting roof. Here.
Do I
Getting
come? Do
roof.
we come?
Yeah, we gotta start fucking putting shots on these guys.
They got purple armors.
There's a guy on roof outside on the right.
Okay? He's just a solo, he's inside, 45 purple on him.
I'm coming.
Good. Yeah, they wanna fucking fight for that. They definitely wanna fight for that.
They got Ash. 42 on Ash.
Yeah.
We gotta make sure we look behind us too. They can just
Yeah.
walk up behind
I
us.
look
and don't
behind.
shoot
I
us.
look behind.
Yeah, one of you guys look.
Just do damage to them as much as you can.
Yeah.
To these guys in front. They have to do it after us, so.
Do I give you ult them up here or what?
We'd have to, yeah, we have to.
Walk ulted behind us. 2 people walk ulted behind us. Some team is
Yeah,
flying
they're-
towards
They're
us.
landing on a rock behind us.
They are?
Yeah, they're on the road. They're on the road.
Yeah,
Come
they
to me. Come to me.
Jump,
Come to me.
jump.
Come to me. Come to me.
They TP it over. They TP it over.
Are they on the roof?
No, they're not. They TP downstairs.
Come.
Yeah.
I can't get. Wait, we gotta walk.
Get closer. I'm taking it instantly.
Yep. Stay on the roof. They're nading. Bubble. I'm gonna nade this thing. Just pop bats. I'm nading them.
Nade inside. Be careful.
We should be fine. Play on the left side. Team in front of us just landed. Shit on these guys. Val fucking won. Nice. Is this your ult?
Fuck, I fell down. Fuck me,
Stay on
dude.
me, stay on me.
Good.
Yeah, dude, full 3-man here.
I can't tip him up. We gotta watch left.
I'm dead.
We gotta watch left. They give you ulted. We should be good on me here. In front of me, Raid, dead. One team dead.
dead,
Play in
I'm
this
dead.
box.
I'm just getting. Rest me, bro.
I can't, bro. I got people on me. Use your knock.
Take my knock. Take it back.
They're fighting below us. You might be able to third party
I'm
that.
ready. Drop medkit.
Right here, my last. I'm getting this red. I got Moby. Can you pick up the banner?
Yeah.
Above us, on me.
Dead.
Nice, just chill. I'm gonna stick. You look on the right side. Look up behind us on the right, okay?
Yeah.
A bow on the right.
As soon as I
Coming
get
up.
west, they're climbing on left side. I'll come for you guys.
Have my knock.
Yeah, coming. Behind me as well.
On the right.
I'm dead,
Oh, I
man.
didn't get out.
That's so bullshit. All
We had we can't fall down there. It's so
I
bad.
know. I jumped up in the air because I got hit by a Gibby ult and it pushed me backwards down.
Yeah, we just have to stay on the roof there and tank everything in the middle of the roof on me. You literally have to. You guys need to like suck my ass, like literally play on top of me. You can't be fucking.
Smelling it.
Holy
Not.
fuck,
We
dude.
can't be even close to the edge there or looking down there at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I know. I
It's
wasn't
a waste
looking
of
down, I just
fucking damage and everything.
Yeah, I got fucking hit by Gibby ult and it pushed me backwards and I fell down.
As
My
long as,
bad.
as long as you survive there, we actually have a chance there.
Yeah, I know.
What is that? Only 6 points? Is it 6? Yeah, it's 6.
Didn't got the Valkyrie kill. Firsted him. I didn't first him. I mean.
Yeah.
There, Tashin, in the end, you should play on the right side of the fucking roof. Because there's only one guy flying on the right and there's a whole team climbing left. Don't worry about me, and you don't have to body block from me or anything. I can always let go of the red. Just play on the right side like I told you.
I was
Because-
sticking my medkit. It took so long, man.
Yeah, because I said right side on purpose because I knew that left side is gonna have a lot of people and right side was only like one fucking guy just being stupid.
Fuck, my bad, guys.
It's fine, we move on.
Yeah.
You want this shit? Is it
No,
players
I
in?
need to see. I'm pretty sure I got fucking hit by Gibby ult and it pushed me backwards. Fuck me. Yeah.
Staying too close to the edge, man. We gotta play
Yeah, I know.
in the dips on the roof. Like we have little dips over there. We gotta play in them.
Yeah.
Like those guys literally have to climb a whole roof on us to do anything to us. Like we don't even have to look
Exactly.
down there. They're insta dead if they climb it.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, fuck, man. Good spotting.
That's what you said, way of dying.
It's fine though. We still got 6 points, which is not terrible. It could have been 0.
Yeah. Yeah. 9 4 kills. Good fight on the Valk team though.
Yeah.
I
that was-
fucking shot first Tashin, I shot Tashin full pump, and then you full pump. I think
Definitely-
you guys didn't have names on top of you.
I definitely think charge rifle is not the play in my opinion anymore. Because we literally like rely on us to get kills for you to swap. Because there's no way in that zone charge rifle would be the good first 2 zones and then last.
Yeah,
If
it's
you
ass in third
If you
zone.
had to be on the roof there with a charge rifle, there's nothing you can do. Like you have to use
Yeah,
only
exactly.
your mastiff.
Agreed.
So just use I think 301 because I
Just-
also
just
I
play
had a
weapons and shit.
I had a fucking 301 full juiced with a 3-timer and like 300 light ammo, bro. Like should have
Yeah.
definitely taken that in my opinion.
Fine. Let me get some fucking
Man,
We
you
get
just
the-
scrabble up again next time,
That's
motherfucker.
true. I should have queued up, dude. I'm so sad, dude. Fuck.
I found that Moby too late as well. I should have looked for it, but I was getting shot off the body. I should have looked for it
Yeah.
like more aggressively. Because if
My
we
bad.
get you up there and you get your dome, and you loot that fucking raid that I killed, and we get your dome, dude,
Yeah.
it's fucking. We probably don't win the game, but you know, more points for sure. Okay, well that was good. It wasn't bad first game. Don't get me wrong. Like 6 points, we'll take that shit.
Yeah.
Definitely could have been better though, but it is what it is. We go next. We go Nick.
We good. Keep
We
it
good,
cool.
we
Keep it
good.
cool.
We keep it consistent and we're good. Keep it consistent and we are good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a good TP up top roof.
Yeah, I had to jump
was
down
perfect timing.
because it wasn't fucking clipping from the top of the roof. Yeah, and there was a lot of teams around us on the roof, but we played it well, like make everyone like kind of like fuck off and jump down. Because
Yeah.
that side
Oh,
where the
dude.
zone is in our ass is the strongest side of the roof.
Such a sad way of dying, dude. Fuck.
It is what it is. Whatever. Just forget about it. Go next.
Yeah.
It's only first
Alright.
game. There's still far more fucking
Yeah, we
juicer games.
We got some more.
That was a good start anyway. It's not like we got 0. We got 6 points.
There. I'll go Pinot.
Decent first game though. Not bad, not bad. Just keep moving. Keep moving, keep farming, keep smoking. Good fights. You guys here?
Yeah, what's up?
Yo.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
It was still a good game. 6 points is still good.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Stick
Keep
together.
moving.
Fuck! That's just
I wanna-
annoying, dude.
I just wanna watch where I got shot from. I was so confused where I got knocked. I just got shot from everywhere.
You got shot from your left side. That's why I
Left?
told you to go right side of the roof.
Yeah, I wanna see if there was someone right too.
There were, but after you got knocked, they jumped up right. But if you
Yeah,
could,
right
you would probably be able to full heal on the right and then fight off right side with me after I pop the res.
No.
I was so close to getting out of the ship too. I was like on my way spawning in the ship, dude, when you guys died.
Yeah, I had no
They would've-
ult or anything to like.
It would have been juice if I got out and just fucking sat like a rat somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I almost fucking died too. It naded it, the sky naded in the bubble and it fucking almost hit me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see what happened there. I'm pumping medkit. Oh no, I jumped down. Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
No.
Too close, playing too close to the edge.
Backwards. Yeah.
Playing too close to the edge. Gotta play up top. Jumping down there.
Yeah, it's stupid.
I'm
as
jumping
fuck,
down.
dude.
One
Yeah.
knock, all dead.
Yeah, because once you like, I didn't even my ult, so I can't even save you there.
Yeah, it's all good. That's 100% my fucking bad, dude. Holy shit.
Dude, how many GB bubble and
Yeah, I saw
GB
that.
ults and shit, dude.
Yeah, but that our roof was so good because you can dodge a whole GB ult if you just push up to the middle of the roof where those metal things are. I was sitting there,
Yeah.
I was not thinking a single fucking metal.
Bro, I don't know
missile.
how, but everything hit me, bro.
Yeah, I was just sitting up there and I maybe took one hit of GB ult out of like 3 GB
I
ult
saw
of
it.
jump.
Yeah, you got hit
runners.
one time. It was insane.
It's really good.
Fuck.
It's okay. It's still
Yeah.
6 points is not terrible. We still got a lot of points on the board, and we just keep moving that same pace. We keep getting points on the board, and that fight with the Valk team down below us was really good. Good fucking knockout the air.
He got rest and they got second place.
How do you get res? We kill them all.
No. That Valkyrie I knocked, he got rest. Okay, no, maybe he didn't got rest, but they managed to get top 2 somehow.
Oh.
I didn't got the kill though. For that guy. I don't know. Just literally 2 teams collapsing at us.
It is.
We're in the middle.
It was rough from our entry point anyway. We were gonna have a lot of teams on our side anyway. It was rough, but we did.
And then I fucking.
We maybe could have gotten some more points there, but it is what it is. We can't live in the past. We move for the future. We go on.
Yeah, go next. Oof.
Good water,
Six.
go next.
6 pointer.
All right. 4 people not in. Well, 1 person not in. 3 people are not playing to begin with. Who didn't get in?
I don't know.
Alex.
Solaris
Not
again.
in.
Let it be know.
BJ said, please don't restart.
Motherfucker, dude. Fix this fucking shit.
Fix this shit, Gaben. Trying to play the fucking game, dude. Fix this shit, EA. Bunch of motherfuckers trying to play the game. Spin my head right round, right round. New code.
Yeah.
First shot, baby.
I'm dumb. Varför There.
Fucking got that shit first shot, baby. Let's fucking go.
I just typed that shit wrong. On purpose. I don't know why.
On purpose.
Yeah.
Just wanted to type it wrong.
I just the last thing typed wrong.
Trap. We're chilling. We're chilling. Game one, not bad, baby. Good start. 6 points. We had worse starts, baby. We had 0 point starts in our career. we
How
had
much did we start yesterday? First game.
4, I think.
Good upgrade.
No. We started with fucking 2 points yesterday. The first day we
30.
started with 4.
Anything happen? We can literally go 0 point in 4 games in a row and win 2 back to back and still be second place or some shit.
We
Anything
fucking
can literally
listen, dude. We had tournaments where we started with 0 points and we won them, and then we had tournaments where we started with 0 points and ended with 2.
happen. Yeah, happens.
Happens, dude.
Yeah.
What are these Russian memes, bro?
Don't know.
$30 seconds, bitches. 30 bitches
Yeah.
in the seconds. Good fight though, man. Like we get round 1. Usually, you know, game 1 is always the shakiest. We're the least, like, the most afraid to fight and shit. We fucking straight yeeted those guys out the fucking lobby, dude. That's what I like to see.
Yeah.
Good fighting.
I like
But
it.
don't get
Shit.
overconfident.
Yeah,
Overconfidence is a slow but an insidious killer. Alright?
I'm pushing.
Alright. Yeah.
Pushing P.
Push
Oh.
P, baby.
Pushing P. Oh.
Behind me always. Push together. We got
Pushing
this.
P. Pushing RPR's ass. Oh.
Overconfidence is a slow but an insidious killer. You know where that is from? It's from Path of Exile. Oh, everyone's in. Let's go. We're playing this game.
PoE, man. I actually never played PoE. To be honest with
PoE
you.
is goated, dude.
I played a little bit. Like,
Pay
got
to
like
win
20,
it.
23 or something. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
exactly.
pay to win, dude. What are you
It
guys
is.
smoking?
It is.
How is it pay to win?
Need to buy potions.
No, you don't.
I need to buy weapons.
Everything
Oh,
you
okay,
get in
no
game
fucking
is
no.
you find it in game and you enchant it yourself.
But you can buy it though. To
You
have it
have an
fast.
No.
auction house, right?
You can buy cosmetics. Auction house, you can buy shit from only with in-game currency, not with
Yeah,
real
but you
money.
can buy in-game currency with real money, though.
No, you can't. Well, not
You
legally.
can't?
Not
Yeah, but-
legally.
Dude, who does stuff legally nowadays?
I do.
I don't. Motherfucker, I bought RuneScape Gold multiple times.
Did you also buy Apex coins with real money?
Oh, yeah. Lots. Lots.
Nah, what do you mean free money? Huh? I wrote
real
in
money.
Google Apex Legends free coins, and then I had to give my origin account password and shit. And I
Your
got
credit
free
card
free Apex
number
coins.
and
I
your
got free
3
Apex
numbers
coins.
on the back of your credit card.
Yeah. They would give me a bunch of money to pay.
They give you $1 million of coins. It's a hack, dude. It's a hack.
I'm generating fucking Apex coins keys, dude. Want some?
Who the fuck are? Oh, this is Horizon, them, right?
Yeah. Must be.
Oh, nice. Nice.
No beacon, but we got a beacon here.
I ripped that shit instantly.
I'm gonna keep an eye for this. Maybe I can land on it.
He landed on it before.
You did? Yeah.
Yeah.
We got later then.
But we can loot towards it. Or you can
Whoa,
move towards
those guys are landing. Those guys are flying slow. Oh, they're
it.
landing
Yeah, because they're
downstairs
going
there.
below us. Yeah. That's why
Yeah.
they're flying low.
Yeah, look at him. What if we... Ah, no, that's troll.
No,
I was
no,
about to say,
no.
what if we both swerved on him?
No. And you both get fucking PK'd or some shit? No.
He lands on the egg.
Who the fuck does he think he is? That's legally our fucking loot.
I think it's actually more in his POI than ours.
Nah, there's some bullshit. We own the world. Not crafted.
Oof.
We,
This
we
would
move,
be a very nice
we move
one to have
towards
beacon
here.
on.
Let me get that beacon from the left.
301 potentially, is one of you guys find it?
I'm at R9 right now. I want a wingman.
I have alternated PK right now.
I got R9 more zone. I'm really just
Oh,
pulling off.
massive.
Oh, a wingman R9 now.
I have 301 now. This, on the way over when you need.
Yep. Oops. Back where we were sick.
Ooh, this zone right here. Fucking hell. Drop a PK right here.
Taking that.
Yeah, we hit the beacon on the left side, right?
Either that or right. We gotta hit one of those though. Maybe the right one would be easier.
Wingman here. Probably. He probably left.
What?
There, I think I got everything. They probably left. There's no way they're still
Yeah.
on that
3-timer
beacon
here?
building. Yeah, I got 2. I'm good.
Okay.
Extra bat here. Picking that up.
I'm gonna play Wingman Massive.
Okay.
Okay,
I got R9 Mastiff. R301.
There's two blues over here.
I'm good. I
I'm,
got
go-
one.
I'm going for one.
Is there? Did you loot middle though, Manda? You could get
No.
one right there.
Oh shit, yeah, there's a fucking bat in middle.
I'm killing
That
Ultex
Wingman,
also.
you take that up, or
Yeah,
can
purple. Oh.
I have one. I already have a wingman.
Good.
There's another one right here.
Good.
Yeah,
Let's
you
go.
guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just gotta pick up
We
the
just hit it
PK and the
soon.
red dot. Gotta pick up the PK and the red and I'm good. Red dot here, Tashin. Wait, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Are you
I'll
walking
pick up
here
the-
or left
Yeah,
side?
walking to you. Because I
Fine.
have to pick up the PK. And then we're going right side, right? We're going right side after I pick
Yeah.
up the PK. But we gotta move.
I'm waiting for you guys on bridge.
I'm carrying another ult axle. I dropped 2 medkits here. I have 2 ult axles on me.
I'm good.
Alright, let me grab this PK and I'm good to go.
Which one? Which one could it be, dude?
I don't know. Don't worry about it. That's my job. You fucking shoot.
Yeah.
I have
I'm waiting for you
24
guys.
cells. You guys need?
I got 12.
I got
I'm good.
12 and 2 bats. We're good for now.
Let's
Just
go.
carry.
We should go to me now.
Yeah, we're moving as fast as we can.
Be careful for rats here.
My wingman is stacked. My PK is stacked as well.
I have 4
Yeah, my
bats.
Mastiff and 301 is attacked. I have 6.
I have 2.
Arpar, good. You have space, Arpar?
Monday, give me 2 bats. I give you ult axle.
Okay, perfect.
Ult axle behind you.
They're shooting on the left side here.
Yeah, okay, we hit the beacon first, then we worry about them.
Yeah. Just making sure you know.
But yeah, I hear them. They're playing D gate. Top on the left. for
Yeah.
some reason. Maybe we don't have to PK here. Maybe we don't have
I'm
to.
doing
bubble.
it.
Yeah, just hit it.
I'd rather just bubble.
No,
don't you
no,
think so?
no, we're good. We're good.
Nah, I'll stand here.
Too late already.
Ooh, okay.
Go back.
Yeah.
Fuck, left beacon would have been
Oh,
better.
dude, you scared me. Holy fuck.
It's this ending on me.
Okay.
We might have to Valkult now. Do you have Valkult now?
Yeah.
Let's hit it right here. Because we wasted a lot of time. And let's just fly towards that beacon building. I know this spot is really sick to hold early. There's a team right here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through them, right?
No. We're not gonna go through them. We're gonna land
Okay,
here.
we go here then.
Yeah, we're landing here. They're going on the bridge.
On the building. I'm landing on the
Yeah,
building.
yeah.
Yeah, they're
same
holding
bridge.
that ahead of us. Are they holding that?
Yeah, there are. 28 purple.
Why are they holding
Good
that?
package here.
And maybe the thing is one of them that there's one that ends right there also, Mr. T or Mr. Arbar.
Yeah. Okay, let's
But
stay
yeah, you're
here.
probably-
I'm gonna farm these spiders and I'm gonna look through the tunnel here.
I'm gonna look to us, our east.
We have drop here.
I'll take it.
Okay, these are good groups, man.
Purple, nice. I got all a respawn beacon too.
Take it, Ashin. Purple. I'm gonna get mine. I'm 200 off. There's a lot of cells here on the ground, boys. A lot.
Yeah, I
need
got
to drop
12
some.
already.
I need to pick up heavy, bro.
Okay.
He has 24 cells.
Yeah, I have
Gold
20
mag.
now. I dropped some on the
Purple
on the
heavy
boat.
mag.
Yeah.
By the way, they don't have
A Gibby.
Gibby, yeah.
Fuck,
How
this
much
spot would have
else?
been sick, man.
Yeah.
Alright, we just play from here. Well, they're playing here and all the way there alone, Ash.
Yeah, I know. I see him.
Poke so much we want, Arthur. We have so many cells.
Yeah, get that perp.
He's so alone, that Ash. Like, we could, when we have to push, we can really just shit on this team.
Yeah. Agreed.
They get sandwiched as well. What is that, man? Who's that big bitch? Look how far he's fucking playing.
Yeah, he's playing all the way over there. He's all the way out there, the Valk. Purple armor on Valk all the way. I didn't check any of the other armors.
Someone rest.
Yeah.
Is that
Rest
Reza?
next to us.
Where? Right. Like
Right here. Right there. Right here. Where my ping is.
How?
The rest just went away. If they move, these guys we want to take their spot, right?
Yeah, we can move from there. We'll see.
Nice.
We'll see.
Yeah.
What we do, we don't know where the zone goes, so. We have ult axel, so we can do shit. We can do double Valcodes and shit.
Yeah.
If we won't really want to. But yeah, our angles on this fucking bridge thing is pretty fucking strong. They're playing so split as well.
They are.
We
Yeah,
could
whenever
definitely
if we have to push them, we can just fucking ash TP on one of them and just fucking roll him.
Yeah, single someone out and kill them.
Yeah.
God, dude. So unlucky that I said right beacon instead of left. Because left would have bang.
The Valkyrie is over here.
Is he on the rock or? Ash is here, and Gibby's here, and Valk is playing here.
Oh, there's a Gibby. I didn't see him.
Yeah, they have a Gibby. It's Gibby, Ash, Valk.
They have so much space over there.
Yeah, but they're so
Yeah.
split as well.
Yeah, there's an ending that ends here. I don't know if you've seen it before.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
It's literally on them, also.
Yeah. I think our spot is pretty good.
Yeah, it's good for now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad.
And we have choices to go both sides of the mountain if we want to.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
I do know that this zone definitely looks like it's gonna end up here.
Hmm. Yeah, you're the one that ends like on the rock, high ground or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The energy spot, you know, when they play in the rock.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you got that. Let's go. I'm just gonna fucking.
These guys don't have a lot of meds, I can bet. They're really not peeking at all. They're playing super safe. I'm getting some of these cells closer to us.
Yeah. We should also get the blue armors from inside, actually.
There's
Yeah, they're getting shot in the back now.
someone's
Yeah.
flying, careful.
Yeah, I see. I'm holding roof.
Where are they going?
Over us. Looks
on,
like
land on them.
that's the fucking
41 blue on
the
one?
thing team.
Yeah,
I think they know where it ends.
where did they land?
Yeah, right.
Deep?
Like
Right
over
deep.
here type shit.
Okay.
Like all the way backside.
There's 7
There's a
cells
team here, by
below
the
you.
way.
Really?
That team right here, look, they're gonna be pushing up. Yeah. That's
Towards
Shift
them?
team. Alright, there's
Ooh,
at least
they-
a Bangalore.
They might fuck the team on bridge and then we
That's what I'm
teleport.
thinking.
How much have you about, right?
159, but I'm
Okay.
still poking here. I
I'm
got
gonna
it.
take some more light down here. Just like good shit, RPR.
Thank fucking Jesus, that took forever. Alright, we got purples now. Now we just chill and wait for zone. Bangalore is dying.
There's 2 banks, right?
Yeah, but one bank has died. 3 cells below the building,
Yeah,
buddy.
they're still playing over here.
Actually, I'm just gonna bring them in into the building.
Solo Q Girls was eliminated.
I just
Oh,
use
these
them.
guys. Wait. Oh yeah, there's a new team, third party, and this third party.
What third party?
3 teams on the backside here, by the way.
Okay, that's really good
not
for
one.
us. That means there's not many teams on our side. We just have to protect
Yeah.
our side.
Fuck, I wanna loot this so bad.
This,
you want
listen,
then?
our spot
Yeah.
is like in. It's such a spot where we will have to fight our way in.
Yeah.
We'll just have to choose the best fight, which is probably gonna be this fight right here,
Yeah.
because we can have really good angles on them. It's just that Gibby has a really good head glitch. We need to get him off that head glitch and then just shit on them.
Oh, this one right there.
Yeah.
I
look at
missile
this.
him, he has to move out.
They're gonna be, yeah. They're getting bang ulted now.
Sandwiched. Yeah. Ooh, I'm moving up a little bit on this. Maybe see if
Do
I
that.
can- Did they
That
just
team
use
right
their
there.
Gibby ult? They just used their Gibby ult.
Yeah. This team is looking for a 2 RPR.
Okay.
Alright.
I can help you out, Women too.
One guy's super far away.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, they're looking for it. They're walking down now.
Gibby's blue here.
I'm gonna keep calming for you here, okay?
Okay. Did you,
They're done here.
who used that Gibby ult? Is that team close that used it? I think so, right?
I think so, yeah.
They have to be.
So Gibby and Valk are running left side right now.
Yeah,
The
Gibby's
Lopez in this one.
Gibby's stuck here alone, Teshin.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tether him. 38 blue on him right here. Got his rock.
These guys are shooting at me now.
Okay, just keep shooting at him, man.
Yeah.
On the
I'm gonna
45
go
purple on that guy in the bridge.
I'm not gonna go inside. Gibby and Valk are playing left side here.
Crack that one guy there. He's stuck in a corner. Headshot 86 on his hash. Dude, I'm shitting on them, dude.
Oh, that's perfect. Perfect. We gotta hold our side.
Fighting.
Yeah. We keep holding our side. The zone's good for us.
These guys are looking for it though. These guys
Yeah,
really want
we
to
fight
push
him off.
over.
We fight him off. We fight him off.
They really want to push over. 14 purple.
Yep. They will try.
They got
They
low
low
though,
over.
so they can only Valk hold over here.
How do we want to play this? We need to find the best spot to play it. Don't die, don't die.
Please.
Stop ego challenging him. We don't need to lose meds. I have a Phoenix.
I think cannon.
Alright.
Playing on cannon is good.
Yeah, but then we can get sandwiched from the other team.
We gotta hold this house and we gotta walk in.
This rock is also really good on me.
Yeah. Nice. They got, I don't know, they got triple take and Tier 1, I think. I don't think they're gonna Valk hold in. Is that in? That's in too.
They're walking away right now. South.
Yeah, they are. I see them. Oh shit, I'm blocking you, sorry.
No, you should. I have sniper.
No, I don't have sniper, I have 3-1.
Take the
Oh,
light
where's your
on the
ammo?
first floor if you need.
Yeah, I am.
They might
I have
converge on
80
the
heavy.
bridge team. They might
They're
converge
walking,
on
they're
the bridge
walking
team.
over. They're
Yeah,
walking
don't
over
shoot
right
at
side,
don't
by the
shoot
way.
at the left team. Let them force the right team. Don't shoot
Okay.
at the left team at all. Let them they're still here though. Is this a
Yeah.
different team?
No, it's
They're
them.
they're fighting someone else here. There's two teams
They're
here now.
fighting. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just staying here.
Let them fight and we control our spot.
Yeah.
Our
This
spot
right
is
here
really
is-
good.
This red here is in also. But they get poked if they play there, I think. So
What,
we
here?
need someone to look through cave real quick. Also.
Teshin, you got that or what?
Which cave? Which cave? You mean
The
this?
spider
Watching
cave.
Yeah,
me, yeah.
behind us.
Yeah, I'm watching north and east.
They just got purple armor right here.
Okay. Yeah, this bridge
They
team
don't
will...
have Gibby. Oh, they're fighting right now. Actually, pretty hard. It's fine. It's good. That's good. That's good for us.
Yeah, just poke and maybe we can still kill.
Yeah, that's good for us. That's good for us.
70 heavy, bro. I don't want to shoot that much.
Yeah, just chill. Just chill.
100.
They're going this way. Loba's team is going the right side now. We
Okay.
still got one team here.
Yeah, okay. We focus that team.
They jumped in the,
They're coming
in the
here.
water. Headshot him,
I'm
headshot
gonna...
him.
I'm
Yeah,
tethering.
cracked him. 50 on him.
45 purple on 90 purple on Ash. They're gonna
They're
fly. They're
gonna
gonna fly. I tethered
Yeah,
one.
you tethered him? Nice.
They have to fly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna arc them once.
Do it.
They're arcing? Oh, they're flying? Yeah.
They're flying.
I'm still looking behind us.
41.
Keep doing. I'm looking behind us, dude. Be careful for out of bounds.
Nah, 80 purple on Gibby. Crack the Gibby in the air. Holy shit.
Okay, I'm
I
coming
can't
down to
see
you
them
guys. Oh, behind us in cave. Cave.
Okay, okay. Watch cave. I'm nading it. You might have to Gibby ulted. I'm tethering close.
I keep you all dead.
Bubble, baby. I'm gonna. Tashin's getting pushed. Help him. Nice. Chill now. Chill now.
Bubbling Tashin, here.
Yes, chill.
Here. He's in zone. Right to him.
1 HP. Bang. Blood on. We got Gibby ulted from behind.
Keep going from behind.
That guy.
Tracked him. 1 HP. Dead.
We got to run the back now.
Dead.
Team. You guys got that 2-3.
Tethering one.
As pushing close.
Fuck.
What is that?
Man, I knew that was gonna happen! Navi, you stupid fucking cucklord shit fucking players! We need to pay more attention to the fucking cave!
Yeah.
That actually happened, dude.
If we can see them early,
Now
they
they're
can
dead.
do that, man. And OP, of course, these controller fucking idiots are doing this shit, man.
Oh, they win this. Never mind.
No fucking way they
They actually win that. Holy fuck. Oh, never mind. Oh my god, dude.
God, man. We have to pay more attention to the fucking cave there.
Yeah. I said it like 2 times also.
Yeah, I
I was
watched that
holding the
cave
phone.
the entire time until that Volk ult. We focus all the Volk ult, then the shit happens. I watched the entire fucking
We should have
time
wiped him
cave.
even faster, though. As soon as we
yeah,
knock
I
the
know,
first guy, just go
I
in.
was the only guy shooting the knockdown. The
No, I was shooting no, I shot I did 500 damage to knockdown.
I killed
I
him,
was
dude.
spamming that shit.
I fucking headshotted, body shot, and killed him behind the
I guess I
knockdown.
should just slit jumped over to him.
Yeah, we should have bubbled on the body, I think. And
Yeah,
just
but I have
fucking-
to bubble Taishin. I want to make sure he doesn't die. He was like 90 HP.
I don't
'Cause
know,
there's
man,
no way I
it's
don't
so
bubble
fucking
Tashin here.
Stupid. This fucking dog shit controller team
It
just.
surprises me that we take so long to kill two people, dude.
Yeah, because-
I couldn't do anything. He was just playing behind knockdown.
Because
I was
it
shooting his
was-
knockdown.
Because Tashin, we're getting Gibby ulted from our back. We have to sit in our bubble and wait in the bubble. Because if we run out of it, we get stunned and we die. And I have to pop
Just-
a whole
no,
battery.
when I bubbled there, we all 3 just go and bubble together.
No, but I'm not
we
full
would.
HP. I have to fucking. I'm in the bubble healing. I have to heal.
I don't know. Fuck, dude, that was our game too. Yeah, we just got cocked from behind there. Oh my god.
I knew that was gonna fucking happen. I fucking knew it.
Yeah. How did I not hit them? I hit one guy with my my Gibby ult. Like none of them got hit right there. So weird.
It's the mountain above them.
We have to just wipe it really fast next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Bangalore was insta dead. I fucking
if we
rolled
pay
it.
attention to the cave, we can wipe them before they even fucking get midway to the cave.
Yeah.
Make them like they don't have Gibby. We would have killed them in the cave while they're running across.
They're already up on that close range, so I couldn't
Yeah.
fucking do anything other than just fucking.
If you
Gibby
looked at
ult them.
it the entire time, then we would have killed them by the time they can even get out of the cave because they have no Gibby. There would just be 3 shots for us. We have 2 wingmans and a
Dude,
301.
fuck.
Yeah, we need to be.
I guess just run towards them.
I don't know, but yeah.
I know. I guess I just fucking straight up just run towards them.
We need to be more on top of that area control shit, because that that one fucking 2 seconds of that we didn't look at them
can't hear you,
actually
man.
got us killed.
So much going on. What do you say?
Yeah, I said we gotta be more on top of area control, because those 2
Dude,
seconds
I
that we
swear,
didn't
man.
look.
I do maximum effort watching behind, and then this shit happens like a second, dude. A
I know.
second.
We have to like do it. Like we have to actually ignore Valk. If we see a Valk team that's not flying on us, you see that they're flying away. Don't even shoot at them. Like fuck them.
Yeah.
They're not gonna land on us.
So bad timing, dude.
Yeah, it's terrible.
What are
timing.
they doing?
Literally,
I don't know. We just need to look at that until we're sure nobody come through.
Exactly.
I saw them like last second when they're close.
Literally those 2 seconds, like yeah, we got those fucking kills, but they fucked up our
Oh
whole
my
entire
God.
game because of that. We could have killed them before they even got close to the exit of the cave. Because they have no Gibby. They would have gotten shit on so fucking hard. It would be ridiculous.
Oh, a vault on a troller door. Monarchs.
They don't know what they're doing, and they're dragging us with them.
Yeah, Navi cocked us there. That was lucky.
I don't know what the fuck Navi's doing, bro. Playing no Gibby, edging in. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Holy shit.
5-point game, fuck it. I've seen worse.
We got what, 5 points of that?
Yeah.
We're at 11 now, which is not terrible, but it's still annoying. Both games are winnable. Well, not winnable. The first one wasn't winnable, but the second one was definitely winnable.
First one was definitely more pointable.
Top
If I
three.
didn't fall down, that's for sure.
Top 3able for sure, first one. But the second one was definitely winnable. Because look at them now, these fucking idiots. They have one of the best spots in the zone.
Do I not Gibby ult there or what? Or do I just go ham instead? Do I just not Gibby ult and I just fucking start shooting? I feel like Gibby ult would just like force them to like play in a weird way. But if I had Gibby ult also, I could have thrown it later, but I also fucking died, so it doesn't matter, I guess.
Well, we didn't know if that Gibby ult was going to do damage or not. We didn't know that that Gibby ult sucks.
Yeah.
Theoretically, that Gibby ult should have fucking wiped them by themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
But it did nothing. Somehow they were covered by a whole mountain.
I should just ran over. I should just fucking ran towards the knockdown shield and just shot him.
Well,
I was just trying to shoot the knockdown shield and just fucking kill the knockdown shield instantly.
As soon as those guys came out the fucking cave, it was pretty much over for us. But the only way we survive, like win that, is if we insta-wipe them with none of us go down, armor swap, and we still have like bubbles so we can fight the last team. Because like we literally had like maybe like 5 seconds to wipe the first team and turn around.
Yeah.
That's how fast the other guys came. He got Kraber no scope in the head.
Who?
One of the controller guys. He got straight.
Oh
Kraber
my
no
god,
scope
he
in the
doesn't
head.
even fucking care. Shex doesn't give a. They don't give a fuck. They're not arresting their teammate.
Nope. I would have fucking raised you fucking 10 times over.
Holy shit.
They might die now. This left team knows that they're cracked. They're still not raising.
They're dead.
Now another one is dead. What the fuck are they doing?
Nah, they
dude?
got Andy has this. I've never
no,
seen Andy
he
lose
got
it before in my
fucking
life.
and he's Valk ulting. And he
Oh,
got
he's done-
cancelled.
Nah, he's done so, dude.
Bruh.
Holy
Just wipe
shit, dude.
this.
3-1. 3 vs 3.
This is Sadek Kingdom. They're gonna win this. Yeah, I've never seen Leogri wingman in his hands. I've never seen him lose. Oh no, Artico has no bullets. Yeah, they won.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, there's no way.
Close.
Now, if we were OP there, we win that game, bro. There's no way we do what they just did. 2 respawn beacons on a wall.
I'm so sad. Fuck, dude. Whatever, 5 points. 5
It
points.
is what it is. We still got 5 points. It's whatever. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Gotta be. We have to pay more attention right now.
Not even just
Something-
be more attention, just be more
It's-
patient.
It's something we can fix right now. Pay more attention to our backs. Never let anyone walk up behind us. And 2, be more patient with shit. Okay?
Yep.
We can fix this literally right now in the middle of the fucking tournament.
Yeah.
Watch the back until it's physically no longer possible for anyone to go out of the zone unless they're like fucking dying in storm. Because theoretically, how it still looked okay, you know? Like it still looked like we could fucking like no one can come there, but I guess they went last fucking second and sneaked up like a bunch of fucking bitches.
They were crab walking up the side.
Yeah, cringe.
You look at my viewpoint and you'll see.
Or whatever. I mean, I don't want to see that honestly. Okay, listen. Right now we are 9th,
Hey, go right now.
but it's not that bad. Like we're 10 points behind 3rd, or 12 points behind 3rd, which is not that big of a difference.
Yeah.
And we're only what? How many points? We're only 20 points behind 1st. So we
got 4
can.
more games.
There's so much more space for us to do shit.
Yeah.
So much more.
Oh.
Even with
we're playing well. We're playing well now. The comms are good right now.
the fights are good. We just need to be more patient, look more back, our back more, and not allow, like, if we have a game-winning spot or like a really good top 5 spot, we literally have to prioritize spot over kills every single time, because we can't be losing so much points on like being careless. Like we gotta all of us, we gotta care more about the spot than the fucking kills, all 3 of us. And if we can clean that up, we're gonna, like, with the positions we're playing, we're about to fucking win a game any second now, you know, like, because we're playing really good spots and rotating really well, we're fighting really well, we're just doing stupid unlucky shit that's like Mante falling off a roof and us not checking our back for half a second, like.
How does that Gibel not hit anything though?
But regardless of that, forget about it. Regardless of that, we're still rotating well and our fights are really fucking good. So it's just a matter of time before we win a game. So just keep playing like this. Just pay more attention to our surroundings and less on kills, and we're gonna be good.
All spamming the knockdown shield. This motherfucker is not falling.
I did 400 damage on knockdown shield, dude. What?
Yeah, I ended up headshot body shotting him from the side and killing him. I gotta go pee though. Be right back. But yeah, as I said, we're playing good, we're rotating well, we're fighting well. Keep it up. We just gotta, I'm just gonna stress more that we have to watch our surroundings. That's all. Yeah. We're gonna win one of these fucking games easily if we keep playing like this.
Yeah, we're good. I'm gonna go pee right now.
Kissing the zone, dude. It's kissing the fucking zone.
Yeah.
It's a really good fucking tactic. Surprising motherfuckers from behind, man. So talented. Well played, guys. Good job. And he's just well played there, right there.
Back.
Oh, I should have definitely fucking slid towards the knockdown shield and not away while shooting it.
What you say?
I should have definitely slid towards the knockdown shield and not away while shooting it.
Yeah, we should have. I guess we just
I cracked the Bloodhound also.
The problem
so
is
no shot. We don't fucking just walk over. I'm
the
fully
problem is we believed in the Gibiel too much that did nothing.
Yeah, I hit
we
one.
We trusted
one
the Gibiel too much, and it was ass.
That ult hit the mountain, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, it's because the bottom at the bottom it goes left side up, but on the top of the mountain it goes right side down. I don't know.
Either way, we should have kept our ult for defensive. We already have a knock. We don't need to use a Gibby ult on 2 guys. Go fucking kill them.
I Gibby ulted before. I Gibby ulted before we knocked.
But we should
knocked him right up.
We should, if we had that Gibby ult for defensive after wiping them without Gibby ult,
yeah,
we can even fight off the fucking controller idiots.
Yeah, 100%. But I didn't. It's also hindsight. Like for me right there, it looked like the perfect play. Because if they have only those places to play and they get hit by the Gibiol like 3 or 4 times each, they fucking die instantly, you know?
Yeah, but
and
those guys
have full HP.
We should be able to beat those guys without even having to Gibiol because they have no dome and we have dome.
Yeah, but
we just beat them on range.
It's hindsight though. But yeah, I see what you mean also.
It is, but like we know that we're getting third party in our ass. Like it was gonna happen. So honestly, even if you just threw the Gibiol behind us, like Well, this is
That's
super
what I was
hindsight.
thinking.
But like you just throw it on the canyon, and while we're pushing, those guys have to use their dome or they have to delay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is super hindsight, but like that would have probably done it for us.
I could also save my dome for not doming Tashin, but like that's also hindsight. What if they fucking just peeked and just?
I
run
think
down them?
I think after you knocked him, you should have domed forward, and then Tashin wouldn't be able to die because the dome would be in between him and the enemy. He would be able
Dome was
to.
running- the thing is, Tashin's running towards me and he has 90 HP. There's no shot I'm not just doming straight down and making sure we don't get knocked.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just saying, if we
You know,
dome
like-
forward, we can go fucking shotgun them to death.
Because I've done it so many times where I don't dome straight, but like I dome somewhere else and then you get knocked like on the way over to the bubble.
Yeah, but that's.
And
I mean,
Tashin
we're
that's Tashin-
we're sp-
yeah.
we're speaking pure hindsight here right now. So this is like just pure hindsight. You know, we're not like I'm not blaming you for what you did. I'm talking about pure
Yeah. Oh, we're
hindsight, what we
starting?
could have done. Yeah, we started
Yeah,
now.
but well, our comms are pretty good right now. Fight
No, we're rotating well. We're fighting well. We're talking well. We just need to keep
Good.
it more tighter with the fucking area control and watching our back, so shit like that can happen. Because we would have rolled that fucking controller team in front of us as soon as that zone closed.
Yeah, they would have gotten what's called sandwich also. We would've
They
been able
would
to
have
make that.
like the angles that we would have had on them would be fucking ridiculous. We had so many rocks and shit we could have played, and they still had a blue armor.
Yeah.
Like we would have fucking rolled them and smoked them.
Damn.
It's okay.
Dude.
Keep going.
Yeah, we're all in now.
Yeah, we are. Bro, fucking idiots in chat were saying, you shouldn't have shut the spine, you didn't even know they're coming. Huh, how you fucking, how would I know they're coming, you fucking idiot? If no one shoots them, they're not gonna come out. You know? What the fuck are they
You
smoking?
can actually shoot the spiders and just let them stay in there without shooting the spiders again.
Yeah, but I mean, you could
That's
use them as
hindsight.
an alarm, but like I also got fucking almost red armor of them, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and we got so much cells and ammo because of it. Like, not killing them would be dumber in my opinion. There's so much resources from them. Is this guy flexing his diamond badge?
Yeah, of course. I'm flexing my diamond bands too.
Crafter
Nice.
and scanned it. Perfect.
Huge.
I think we jumped
Yeah.
instantly.
Tashin can't make it up to scan then, I think.
I go alone. it's
Go,
fine.
go. Just
Yeah, I'm going.
I think it's fine. I think we underestimate how fucking tall we actually are when we start. Like,
Yeah, I
wow,
guess.
look how high
Yeah,
up we
true.
are. True. Because this ship like has to fly up higher than Rod. And like we're on the lowest part of the map. Like we are super high in the air right now.
Purple dragon on top of me. That is sexy.
I mean, like that. It's called like purple armor. Oh ja. Oh ja, that is. It's also unlucky that last game we had no beacon, but we still played it well even with not having a beacon. Like we still got a really decent spot.
You guys remember this?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's fucking obvious. It's this. It's the same shit. Like this time, we fucking hold it.
Yeah.
We don't let anyone
Yeah.
fuck with us this time. If we can get fucking, you know, egg, we get egg. But let's be real, we're not fucking getting egg.
That's the fucking trolling the people.
And this time,
Uh,
Mandy, you're gonna have long range, so you're not
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
on a
I-
fucking R9. I have a
No, I have
3-1 if you need.
alternator.
I have 3-1 wing.
I need that, yeah.
I have 3-1 with me right now.
Dude, you need a heavy mag? I'm carrying blue.
I have a grey one right now, yeah. Be good.
Yeah, I'm carrying blue then now.
They should honestly just start crafting now, dude.
Yo.
Start fucking making bats and shit.
I got R9.
There's a wing
Do
there.
I? Is it stupid to pick up a bow?
I don't know. I mean, I have a
Take
3-1
my
for you
R31.
with a
What?
blue mag.
Take my R31. I'm dropped here. Ping me as. I wanna craft a longbow, guys. Not gonna lie. I have good attachments.
Do it.
Okay.
But sniper for this zone is like
Couldn't
It's
find
gonna
okay, I'm
be-
like
okay.
that.
I'm dropping 301 right here. With a
Oh,
blue
you
mag.
got 3 time on 301?
No, it's a 1 to 2.
Oh.
Alright,
Look at what I'm dropping.
There's a 3 time here.
alright.
That's big. You get on 301.
Yeah,
You have to hurry though to get it.
yeah. It's running
And
instantly.
there's one right here actually. Closer.
301? Yeah. Here. Here.
Blue here.
I'm hitting that blue.
Yeah, we gotta move relatively soon.
There's still bats on the crafter.
There's so much cells that I just can't carry at all.
Fuck it, I don't have time to get the 3 timer. I'll get it. I have
It's
a 2 timer.
just on the hill. It's just on the hill.
Ah. Alright. Alright, yeah, I see.
Fucking don't freak out over one fucking.
Oh no, I'm just saying. It's just a lot of time for me to run down there to get it to go back.
You need purple
fine,
stabilizer.
I have a blue one right now. Alright, let's go, baby.
Yeah, blue should be fine for you, bro. Coming.
Yeah, I'm good.
Go on,
I
ready?
wanna make a purple light mag so bad.
I can make you one.
I'm making it. I can make it.
Okay, I made myself a bag.
There. Alright, I'm picking up some more cells. Or bats. I have 4 bats now.
I'm dropping 2 cells here.
Alright, let's move
I
this
can pick
bitch.
him up. I can pick him up. I'm waiting for this batch and I'm going.
Alright. Go in.
You can even Valcool from here. If you have it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we can value from hide here, yeah?
And I have another Ultac cell so we can fucking just Ultac cell after.
Yeah.
Valcool like over antenna like here.
We can't make it that far.
Launch pad. Yeah, but just that direction, you know?
Oh, yeah.
We can actually go here, hit this juicer, then hit that juicer into here.
There's
Yeah.
a guy here.
People here, go antenna, go antenna, go antenna. Go deep antenna.
Oh, there's people antenna.
Just go
Yeah.
deep.
We gotta...
I'm gonna Ash ult us. Just go. Land up top.
Yeah.
Come. Walk with me, walk with me.
Selling?
Yeah, just sell while I get this Ash ult out.
I still got bubble.
Nice. Just keep walking ahead of them. We don't give a fuck about them and they're shooting.
Careful, the top right corner. People hiding here.
Wait,
Oh,
audio? Okay, we're good. How long until you're Valcold?
60%.
Okay, I have one Ultac so we can possibly pop.
Yes.
Honestly, I might even have you pop it as soon as we're safe.
Yep.
For now, we walk.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't have is nades. I have one grenade. It is
I
what
have
it
one
is.
arc too.
I have 14
No
cells
way.
and 4 bats. Someone dying up here.
Yeah. Oh, up there?
Yeah, like all the way up there.
Okay. Oh, up there. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Alright.
all the way up the
Can
hill.
you root pings? There.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just pinging where we're
Okay.
going.
Yeah. I'm just making sure that I understand. Where this
Yeah,
bitch
the-
is.
They 2 teams just died in this compounds up above. Up north of there.
Okay.
2 teams.
That's good.
I think there's teams ahead of us.
Sounds
fighting.
like him.
Yeah, they're fighting. They're
Yeah.
fighting here. This is a third party.
Good third party here.
Keep moving. Keep moving. Keep moving.
One
They have
got
no
knocked,
idea.
one got
Don't
knocked.
show. Yeah.
One got knocked. Right here.
I'm gonna throw my Q at them.
You walk up behind them.
Yeah. We killed this duo. They got bubbled on.
Are we shooting?
Knocked on. Just Valkyrie left. 41 blue on him.
I'm going for the Valk.
I finished the Gibby. He's flying.
Got them.
Nice.
Oh shit, I jumped down. Oh,
You're good, you're good.
I was about to say.
Okay, now we have to fucking worry about team and choke. More
Yeah.
bats here. Red dot, let's go.
I just thought I jumped off the fucking map, dude.
We're good. Watch our back here so the same thing doesn't happen to us.
Yeah.
Off with 1 light ammo here. Cells in here.
Okay,
they
these guys are
shooting?
fighting
They're
spiders.
shooting
and shit.
spiders.
Wait, walk up with me. They're looking, they're looking, they're looking.
17 perp. I'm looking behind us right now. I'm making sure we're not getting.
Yeah, I'm going all the way back. I don't want to have the same thing happen to us.
Yeah. Nice, good picks right there.
Yeah, and that's good.
Two
There's
kills.
14 squads alive, so we can even
Yeah.
like play this late and Valkut over, dude. There's gonna be something free, dude.
Yeah, I think so too. Everyone's
We
double
can-
king right now.
We can even wait for the like we can wait for the zone to close, see where it goes, and then do the stupid fucking Valkut play that the other team did.
Yeah.
They're shooting
Exactly.
spiders here. They're shooting spiders.
Dude, getting a knock on them could be crazy. You
I
guys
mean,
look for knocks. I'm looking behind us, okay?
Yeah, I got wingman. I'm gonna knock someone here for sure.
Got a team walking up behind us here. It's super far away though, super far away. They're in launch pad soon. They're gonna be walking up here on this left side where we came from.
We can
Okay?
gatekeep them. We can gatekeep them.
Yeah.
We should
what I'm
probably
saying.
gatekeep them.
Remember what I'm saying.
I'm not even shooting at this team anymore. I'm looking just for that team. We
They're
go
gonna
above
walk up
them.
this way.
I think they're gonna come from here, or they're
Yes,
gonna
they
come
walk
up
the
the
left
zip line.
side. They walk the left side down.
Okay, I'm gonna go. You guys look
You
at
wanna
that.
red on
I'm.
them?
No, we're gonna full fight them. I think. I'm gonna look at the zip line here. No, they're down here.
No, here,
They're
spiders.
shooting spiders now. Yeah.
Well, I see one guy here, Ash. Then that means only 2 on spiders, bro. Or it's 2 teams. We could maybe.
Yeah.
Are they down the hill or are they in
They're
the
spidering.
choke?
They're spidering shooting it.
Okay, just wait for them. We might be able to rat them.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're all going now there. I think. This guy's gonna craft. He's alone here. Could we shit on him, Tashin?
Yeah.
He's in the building now. Just wait. They're super split, bro. Not even kidding. Super split.
They're still shooting spiders.
They're crafting.
It has to be.
You see that?
It has to be one guy shooting spiders. Can we go kill him?
Yeah, one guy's shooting spiders, no
We
cap.
gotta look. We gotta look.
Yeah.
And one on crafter right now.
Yeah. They're super split.
They're shooting
Wait.
spiders again.
Walk with spiders. Walk with spiders.
120 and 112.
I'm
I saw him.
going.
Team landing on them, team landing on them.
1 HP. 1 HP bulk. 1 HP bulk. 1 HP bulk.
Fuck.
Fuck.
New
This
team,
other
full
team
team,
just
together.
show. This other team just
Go on
fucked
that
us.
side. Yeah.
They're gonna go. This team is gonna go ahead of us.
Yeah. I'm on top of them right now.
Yeah. Tashin, keep an eye on them. We gotta look for this fucking stupid team.
It's just wingmaning me. I should go back
Yeah.
here.
Sorry, I had to shoot him right there. He was standing completely fucking
Yeah, I hit
still.
him 45 flesh. I just need to hit one more wingman bullet.
I hit him 112, dude. Fuck. I'm going back from that height right there. I don't want to get shot in the back.
How did I not hit him,
go.
bro? Are they fighting someone else? What are they shooting at?
No, they're shooting me.
there? Okay.
Oh, that team just cocked us right there. Fuck, dude.
Look at him. Look at him down here.
Yeah.
41 purple on 1. I'm almost purple. 1 wingman shot. Got him.
Nice, good shit.
We should definitely fucking keep these guys out. They can play down here.
Yeah.
They're gonna play down here.
100%.
Okay, we should
All this
keep
time.
the other guys out for sure then.
Yeah.
We need to keep someone out. We can't let them have all be here.
I can
Mande-
chill here then.
Manda, maybe stay on the roof. Me and
I'm
Tashin
staying
go to the
roof.
zip line here. They're crafting
Still
still.
crafting.
Holy shit, what are you guys gonna be crafting for a year? Tashin, how close to purple?
450.
45 purple on that guy. What the fuck is he using? I'm gonna have 8 cells, 5 bats.
Walking up on the right here. They're gonna try to trade some high ground and shit over here. These guys.
I'm going back to Mandy.
Okay,
I'm
go
gonna
back
shoot
to
me.
Manda, yeah. They're gonna
Yeah,
wait for their
Valve
Valkyrie.
right. Gibby here. And then I haven't seen the Ash in a while.
There's 13 squads alive, guys, and 2 are around us. That means the north side of the circle should be so fucking, like, empty,
Yeah.
you know?
Valkal from there. Can you Valkal over the mountain from there where I just pinged? If we need that later, you know?
Not over the mountain, man. I don't think.
Not over
Mountain's
this.
so big.
Hmm.
Oof, it's hard to
I'm
say.
not sure.
Yeah,
Fuck.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. We just see next zone.
Yeah.
We definitely want these guys to start fucking fighting or Valkalting out or some shit.
Yeah, just get them the fuck out. We can also walk up all the way to Stormcatcher, because this zone can pull back to Stormcatcher here.
Yeah.
Let me just walk up the hill, and then we go inside here and walk out here, you know?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
13 squads alive, a lot of free fucking shit, man. 7 teams died. Or AR6, rather.
I'm walking
Yeah.
up on the left.
Just let them, don't shoot.
Yeah, let them go in, let them
never
go
mind,
in.
never mind. They're walking up closer here to the rock.
Oh, they wanna fight us? Type shit?
Yeah, I think they're walking up.
Okay, I gotta keep looking behind us. The zipline, because they're in here, in the building.
59. Yeah.
Okay, if we can pull off a Valkyrie that goes all the way behind this building or some shit, that'll be fucking sick, dude.
Oof. Yeah.
I think we go now, man. Come with me.
What do
We
you
go
think?
now and we start walking. As far as
Yeah.
possible and then we Valkyrie.
Okay.
Like we start walking up this hill on the left to Stormcatcher. Because there should be a lot of free fucking shit. It's 13 squads alive. Like people should not be in Stormcatcher. But for us, being in Stormcatcher is good enough for fucking Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Some team just literally just died here. A whole team. On my ping, like right here.
Yeah.
They got full wipe.
We're a little bit behind you, Private. Remember.
Shit. You might have bubble me, bubble me.
All the
Dude.
way. Here.
Double headshot one, double headshot one.
Can you
Hit
hear?
it, hit it, hit it.
I don't have DT. Fuck. I
We're
don't
gonna
have
push
DT.
this.
Back off a bit, back off.
I'm gonna ult backwards.
Yeah, do it.
I can't fucking ult enough. It's fine, slide on the hill.
Yeah.
It's fine. Good on me, good
I
on me.
ulted
Yeah,
us.
good.
They're still on top.
Okay, just
28 perp.
full heal. We go back around. We're gonna have to Valkyrie in the choke or some shit. Those guys, no audio, just showed up there. Were they ratting?
They're hiding.
7-second bubble.
Okay. Just wait for
They're running
bubble.
back now.
We go for choke now. We're gonna Valkyrie through choke or some shit.
Yeah.
Can't play this game so slow, bro.
Team is still in the
Okay.
choke, dude.
On top.
28.
Okay.
41, 45.
We're gonna have to Valkyrie maybe off the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's team here on the building. I'm at fucking die! I'm good. Got a
I
full
top
heal.
one.
They might push us. I got the full heal.
Valkyrie.
Got a full heal,
Yeah,
got a full heal.
I'm walking up here.
We have to Valkyrie, guys.
Yeah.
Do it from this side here, where I'm standing.
Yeah,
Ready?
yeah. Maybe from here, up here.
Yeah.
Go for that spot, you know? That
Timmy,
totem
Timmy
used
shit.
on us. Like in here. Yeah, like go through the choke
I'm
on that
staying
fucking
on
high
that.
ground spot. Yes. Like right here somewhere.
Yeah.
Over the, yeah.
Right here. Behind you. Maybe up the
Bubble.
bubble. They naded. We're good. But we have a team above us. Careful. Take control of this. On me.
Where are you? There.
There's another team on us.
No!
Below us too. We're fine.
Am I still?
I cracked one. I'm good.
Full team here.
Full team.
Get in this corner all the way deep. And wait for bubble.
Bad.
I have my ult as well. Waiting for bubble. Gibby ult can't do anything to us. Just block
I
that.
blocked that.
I'm gonna die to those nades. Holy shit! How are they fighting us? Fight each other!
We should land where they landed, I think. We should definitely land on the right side.
I saw a person on this side though.
No, there's no one there. There was a person on our side.
Fuck, man.
There was a person on the right as well when we were flying, dude.
Do that now. We're just dying to like teams just fucking dying. Killing us and then dying after. All 3 games so far.
God, man.
Oh.
Guess we should have moved faster on the rotation. I don't know. Man, why is there a team crabbing the hill to Stormcatcher? It's not even in zone, you fucking degen controller players, man.
Target zone, no? Holding hands.
It would have been the most simple fucking thing for us ever. We would walk into Stormcatcher, fucking Valkut, and get in zone.
Yeah, we definitely land right side there, I think.
Yeah, but there, as I said, when we were flying, there was a guy pushed up on that fucking bin.
I don't know.
But I guess he fucking ran back and those guys hit the fucking timing of the year and got that spot.
Yeah, but Samsung or Valco did after us, and they fucked us because of that.
Yeah, because we scared the guy away. And then
Oh,
they just
man.
fucking took it.
Holy shit, that spot. Artico and Hardeki.
What a match. 11 teams alive, man.
Yeah.
Oh, free.
And everyone's on our side of the circle and one team is grabbing the hill to Stormcatcher. Like, I can't believe that shit still. Look at this
Holy
fucking
shit,
edge,
that
bro.
spot right there.
Whatever, cringe. We're gonna go World's Edge. People are playing
Yeah, go
so
around.
retarded in this fucking lobby, man. Like this is like people are actually playing so fucking weird in this lobby. Actually brain dead. It's like a fucking W cube lobby with a bunch of fucking dog shit teams.
Maybe we should have just kept walking up towards Stormcatcher, because the team would 100% rotated, and then we Valcoed from top of the Stormcatcher where we wanted
Yeah,
to
but
do
there
it
was
before.
there was so little time for us to do that, not to full heal, and they're still above us head with 15 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's like 20 seconds on the clock and they're still trying to push us above us like a bunch of fucking degens that they probably died on that rotation.
I don't know.
912
Oh,
people's
shit.
stupidity, man. So fucking annoying. Whatever, we go World's Edge now.
Yeah.
It's actually that going up that hill is so fucking stupid if we're not first in that hill. Like it's impossible. How else
Yeah.
do we play this zone, man? Like do we go like if we go north side, we still can't go north side because we're too far away.
I don't think we play like we do it right there. We know people are gonna hold it, and then we just walk up on the Stormcatcher side and ult from the top.
Yeah, but that's what I tried to do, and we had a fucking whole
Yeah, but
team.
then we wait until the zone closes, because no one's gonna hold it that late. And if they are, then we got RNG'd, you know?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe yeah. Can we even Valkult over Stormcatcher that corner?
No, I think we can get pretty fucking far up, that's for sure. Compared to where we were there.
Oh, yeah, we have to try.
We can definitely fly way further up the hill and or land on something else.
We definitely have to try. Hardek and them should play that fucking head glitch, right? On the fucking cliff, not the wall.
I think they're just gonna smoke them. Damn. A 3-point game though, fuck it. We got 14.
Yeah, just what the fuck is that?
Oh
Why
no.
didn't we bubble
What the
already?
fuck? No.
It's just annoying how people played that. Like, there's 13 squads alive and everyone's playing in that one choke. Like, we have 4 teams trying to play through that joke. And then one team just crab walking up a fucking hill.
Holy
Like,
fuck.
what are you fucking idiots doing? Who was that team?
Who? Samson? The landed on us?
No, team that was that knocked me. That was
No.
crab walking up the hill.
Oh yeah.
No, no.
I have no idea.
Look at Navi, dude. Look. They're not touching zone anymore.
Where is Nami?
Inside the building.
It's okay, we still have World's Edge. We do well in World's Edge.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, man. That's so many points now.
14, we're fine, we're fine. We still got 3 big games here.
Can you not hide from that? Yeah, you can. What is it?
Oh no, the Bloodhound's gonna go sicko mode against them maybe.
Yeah, they might lose to it. How many DTs do they have? Only Hideki?
2.
He almost knocked one,
Oh,
dude.
look at Leogri, dude. Holy fuck.
Hideki almost knocked one twice now. With the smoke. He knocked,
Knocked one. Oh my god, Artico.
Yeah, they went for free, bro. The other teams fight each other and you smoking. Did they get the kills on the run?
Hideki again?
Yeah, Hideki and them won again.
They won again? No.
Yeah.
I mean, Hideki and them, where do they land? How do they always get the north side of the zone?
This
wall
wall could straight, bro. I swear. They see Ultek said he's already popping it, and then they go.
They must be landing close. Yeah, we also need to be faster in that zone, I think. If we want to get up in there. We're a lot slower.
Since it was 11 teams anyway, I think just even etching the zone would be good.
Yeah, it's just that everyone wants to edge like us on our side.
It's a hard one.
It's okay. Go next. We fucking win one of these World Edge games.
Sir, at least that.
We can still come back. Waiting for code. We got code.
We got code.
I'm in.
I mean, the fact that we have kills like top 5 teams, we just don't have placement for it. Like, we're getting a shit ton of kills, we're just not getting placement.
The fucking tree, man. Climb animation. Fuck me.
Yeah. I swear to God, I saw a person on that dry spot. But even then, man, even if we play that spot, we still
the left
fucking
side?
get sandwiched. On the right
The
side.
thing is, if you play right side though, they have to land where we landed and they die.
Yeah, but then, but they still died after us because they got sandwiched from up top. So, it'd still be us.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess we get 3. What's it called?
Well, yeah, I guess, but yeah. Fuck it, just go next. Forget about it, go
Yeah,
next.
come on.
Last game, I guess we just should have been faster in rotation. shit, fucking retard.
I need store shit. Trouble.
We're gonna start today or what? Alright, come back here. You guys here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh yeah, what's up?
Just making sure we're gonna start now. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Are we 10th?
We're tied for 10.
Yeah. The only good thing about Gambit taking all the points is
You can
we
still get
don't have
a lot of
far
points,
away for second.
Yeah. Just gotta play good on World's Edge and we can come back easily even win.
Mm.
51 points after 3 games, bro. That's cracked. 2 dubs and 1 good game.
It's basically having 2 wins with 10 kills each, basically.
It's a lot, dude.
Yeah.
Wait, how many points did I have? Did it say?
51.
Mm. We're 15.
14.
Yeah. 40 points. All right, we got this.
We
Okay,
can
dude.
catch up to them easily.
Yeah.
Gotta play our game.
Five
5
seconds.
seconds.
Okay. I was about to say, are we gonna fucking start?
Starting.
Crafter beacon. Crafter beacon hot drop. Crafter beacon hot drop hot zone. Crafter beacon hot drop hot zone. Now.
You want everything?
Yeah, everything.
Whole fucking thing
First
for
game.
yourself?
First game World's Edge. Give us everything, please.
We're fine. This is the shit. This unlucky the first 3 games. Honestly, the first 2 games we could have done better. The third game, I don't know what we could have done there. I guess played completely differently, but that is what it is.
No.
The first 2 games were unlucky. We played them really well, but we were just unlucky. But now we have World's Edge. We know that everyone is playing aggressive as fuck and playing Edge like fucking idiots. So what we do is we take advantage of them playing edge, and we get zone early and get a good spot.
Yeah. No matter where life takes me, find me with a smile. Pursuit to be happy, only laughing like a child. What a jammer, dude.
Mac Miller.
Cheese cheek, cheek, yeah, yeah. I ain't gonna wait for nothing, cause that just ain't my style. Hey, life couldn't get better. What a jammer, dude.
Best day ever.
One of my favorite songs in the world, man. So
Same.
good.
I love that guy, man. I fucking love Mac Miller. Okay.
Let's go, baby.
Nice plane.
Good song.
Nice beacon.
Beacon, good. Beacon at least.
Good stuff.
One knock.
This guy looks like he's following me, yo.
I'm looking over you up here.
Yeah, I'm already landing on the
No,
top.
he's going right. He's going right.
Uh,
GMP. Just keep in mind, we have Naskin in the lobby. If it's fucking overlook, he's gonna be sprinting up the fucking hill.
yeah, I know.
It's not, it's landslide ending. You wanna get out here again. We gotta go there
Yeah.
fast. I'm not fucking
Oh, yeah.
kidding. We gotta go fast.
Yeah, I'm doing it fast as I can. I'm bringing a wingman to one of you.
Yeah, I need it. Well, I got nothing for you though.
That's okay.
Fucking devotion right now.
I'm not looting everything. I'm going this straight.
Fucking Prowler and fucking Mastiff for now.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not looking fucking perfect.
Yeah, we gotta move though. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, it's fine.
There's a
Just
ball
find me
here.
like a 2-timer or something. I have
How about 2
30 30 wingman.
Okay, how about 2
Guess I'll play 30 again.
Sentinel Mastiff.
Prowler
Or
and
set rules
Mastiff.
here.
Okay, we gotta move now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, fucking fun purple as
Alright,
well. We
what do
gotta
you
go,
have?
we gotta go. Prowler
do you
Mastiff,
have?
I can give you Mastiff.
Alright, yeah.
I'm
going.
Wingman Prowler, I don't give a fuck.
You have what's it called? You have 2-time?
Yeah, 2 time on my Prowler.
Yeah.
Let's go. You guys balloon, I'm walking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which way you walking? This way?
Yeah, same way like the other day.
Okay, I'm landing
I
these.
found a wingman, I'm Wingman Mastiff now.
I'm
I'll just,
wingman 30 30.
Sentinel Mastiff. Blue
Fucking
Boulder
out.
Mastiff.
I can play 2 fucking wingmans, bro. I don't give a fuck.
Oh, wingman? Hey,
Yeah.
go for it, dude.
I also have one
We
with
do
it, so-
we do the same that we did yesterday, right? Walk
Yeah,
up to it. I got a
we're going.
3-timer now.
Nice. I also have a DT on
Oh,
me. if
blue
anyone
armor.
wants it.
Nice, dude.
Pink
You know what?
slapper ammo.
Anyone wants the
Here.
DT?
Yeah, I'm good.
I can take it on my PK, my shotgun.
Okay, here, I'm dropping it. Let's go.
I
we
got
gotta
30.
go.
You go over first. They're shooting over there.
It's fine. This
Never
is
mind.
not even
Just
looted.
bubble.
We should be ahead of them.
Yeah.
You want a 2-timer or no? I'm gonna use it on my wingman.
I got
if you don't
3-timer. I got 3-timer.
want. Okay.
I'm good. Use it for a wingman. I have no bats, but we'll figure it out.
Here, take one. Can you carry?
I can't carry shit. I'll do it. I'll do it during round. I'll drop this then.
Okay, okay. So I'm not going for it. I'm just going to rotate.
We're walking like we did yesterday, right?
Yeah. There's people already up there.
Yeah.
You think this is taken?
I don't know. Don't wait to figure out what's going up here.
Yeah, I got my ult. The truck might not even be taken. They're flying. They're flying at the fucking choke. We should fly as well. We should fly as well. Come here. Come here and fly.
Yeah.
Hit it. Hit it. Hit it instantly. Where are they going? Is that someone with shock or no?
They are. No, wait.
I don't see anyone in shock.
I don't see anyone either.
Go for it.
Can you split? Can you split?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go instantly tower.
No,
Wait,
we should go here.
No,
Both.
shock, this shock. They're in there, they're in there.
Come back,
Come back. We are crypto ulted. Come to me.
Batting?
How about this shock? It's not taken, right?
Does look like it.
There.
Okay, go for it.
I'm gonna
There's
shot
a
him back
team
right now.
behind us.
Can you guys close to me or no?
There's a team in this tunnel.
It's okay, I'm looking. We're good.
They walk up on me. I can't move.
Can you... How long...
I can't move.
Gotta help him, gotta throw nades at him. I got a bat.
Bubble, hold on.
I cracked one,
three.
I think.
Two.
Bat.
One.
Come back.
Following me,
Go,
following
go,
me,
go.
following me.
Why?
Because I gotta fucking do it.
Give me ult if you can.
I don't have it. 5%.
Okay. Why the arm on the fucking Gibby, dude?
We're gonna shot him back
Get
right
inside,
now.
get inside.
Are we good in? We all good? Okay. Blue
Selling.
bolt here.
Got it. They're pushing at 100%.
They're boarding on us. I'm gonna queue it. Don't get kidnapped. He's coming for the kidnap. Knock. We push now. They have white armor and Gibby. Just push this. He's rezzing. Crack Gibby. Push valve.
One shot Valk.
1-1. Nice.
No way. He's on the
Come
point.
back. Just rest.
I'm gonna take it instantly, I think.
I finished one for swap.
We should take the portal now.
Wait. Fucking stabilize first.
I just took the portal.
Okay, we can take it. Fuck it, we'll take it.
30.
Dead.
Okay, chill in here
Take him
now.
back.
Open the door for him.
I'm back.
Alright.
Fucking hell, the pump on her, dude.
I just
104, I think.
Drop
Holy
the full
shit, I
tax
need
on the
that.
ground.
Good shit, boys. I like that.
Good. Okay, I need to go get my purple, bro. I left my purple there.
Yeah. Oh shit. Here. You want me to come closer, or are you good?
I think I'm good.
This blocks his ass. Do I fucking remove it?
Yeah, remove it completely. I don't want it.
130 on one.
Just
You
keep
got
running,
knocked.
I think you got them.
There's a lot of cells here, boys. Like a lot. We should fucking bring them. Someone can play also tower. If you wanna farm.
I knocked one.
Nice! You're fucking insane.
Keep going. Dude, fucking hell. Dude,
I'm bringing a
thinking-
bunch of cells.
I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck is better.
How much do you have, man? The cells?
I have 13. I'm good.
I'm 22. I'm gonna drop a bunch. Can you
I want
carry
that.
ult cell?
I'll carry old Excel.
Fuck, wait. I'm gonna stack them.
Where the
Give me your
fuck
blue,
is the
Mandy.
old Excel?
Here, I'm dropping ult cell right now. I stacked all these.
There.
I'm gonna go get heavy ammo. I have
Perfect.
3 bats if you guys need. I'm no red dot. Do you guys have a
What
red
weapon
dot?
does he have?
Here is
I
an
got a kill.
R9 with.
They died all on height. They all died on height. All of them.
I didn't
Nice,
see the
good
numbers
shit.
go down though. There's a rampage with a 2-timer here.
Someone's sticking.
I think I'm taking the fucking rampage.
Okay, I have
Oh,
a lot of
I got
heavy.
a
ammo.
rampage. I got one. I got 200. Do I take 2-timer or 3-timer? Fuck, I'll bring
I don't know.
both. Fuck it.
Up to you.
Oh, collided them.
Nice.
You got the kill. You're gonna get them. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
60 flash.
I don't know where they are. I'm just shooting.
60 flash.
We're just gonna move in from this hill,
60
okay?
flash. Oh my god.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna end up. Oh, I found a red dot. Anyone want a fucking 2-timer?
Mandy, that's my place, fucker.
Yeah, no, I'm playing red side on you.
Shoot on him.
Look around, boys. Don't focus skills. so
Knock
much.
one.
Nice.
Nice. Keep going. Keep going. Keep
You
going.
finish
I am.
maybe? 45 knockdown. 45 white on one.
Cracked him.
Nice. All that.
I hold out the thing, yeah.
We can fucking play that late then.
Nice.
We can play that late. We can Valko them that late.
Tunnel.
Next to us, yeah. Next to us. No, not tunnel.
No,
All the way up top here.
in the choke. Really far.
I have 0 bats, by the way.
I have
one
3.
only.
I have 3.
Give
You
it to
take
the
one.
one to the Sheen.
I'm just carrying
Nice,
extra
good
meds,
shit.
bro.
Good kills right there. We got 5k kills right now.
We do?
Yeah, Tashin
I
have
have
3.
3.
Oh shit, you're fucking
How many do you
god.
have? Yeah, RPI.
Just
two assists, baby.
Sentinel.
Oh, I was
Just
about to
ping me
say. fuck, I
Sentinel,
thought you-
bro.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say 2 kills. I was about to say, bro, what?
Okay, so we're gonna move in from this hill. I don't think anyone's
Under
playing
30?
here. Yo, no cap, no one's playing on this spot on Countdown.
Yeah,
Could be pretty good for us.
okay. But some
Switching
whatever.
guns soon.
Let's see when the zone closes. If it looks good, we're gonna go take it, okay?
Okay.
I'm carrying a bunch of cells, 16. I got like no nades, only have 1 molly, but...
Is there anybody with a wingman or like a loot
No.
box? With
Yes,
want
there's
this?
a wingman there, there's a wingman there.
Okay,
Alright,
good. I take that.
I'll keep a 30 then. I'll keep a 30 so I have a long range for us. So we
Yo.
can poke.
You have a rampage, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't know, dude. I don't know. Yeah, fuck. Rampage way more consistent, I think.
Yeah, it's also
Agreed,
long
agreed.
range. Where are you hitting, Tashin?
Time away. This truck.
There's a guy here playing our old fucking squad that we won the game of. 15 teams
Yeah.
alive. We can literally walk in from our side, dude.
Yeah, we should be able to walk in.
What shotgun do you have, Mande? I'm Mastiff.
Mastiff. I'm juiced.
Tashin, how about you?
I have massive
Okay, we're all
blue
Mastiff.
bolt.
Okay, we're all
Nice.
Blue Bolt. I don't know what Mande actually has, but I have Blue Bolt.
Blue bolt.
Yeah, or Blue Bolt. Blue bolted up. There's a team in this truck, team in the left truck that we played yesterday. We honestly want to kind of fight them for that spot later if you have to. Like
Yeah,
the
if it
crypto
goes
team,
over there.
that's Gnask in them.
Yeah.
We fight them for it if we have to. We could shit on them. We just have to break the crypto ult and we shit on them.
70 on 1.
Man, I wish a crafter landed on us. I have 50 crafting can do some bats.
Good fire. Yeah, we definitely want to make sure we keep an eye on that thing right there, because if people start fucking landing on them or they start fighting and shit, we can third party. That's a very good spot, I think.
Yeah, with
But we'll see
Gnask's
next zone, because they can fucking end like also other places.
This spot, if they get started getting like sent on, we look pretty free here. Like we're not gonna get contested that much here on us.
I don't think so either.
So I think they might get contested hard. Also, this drop is ours.
I'm just shitting everybody.
I'm gonna
Just
play
shitting
on the
everybody.
drop. I'm gonna play more aggressive up north. You guys need to keep watching around us, guys.
I am.
They're
those
fighting in
team,
here.
those chokes are still in.
Give me
I
your
am.
purple.
Nice.
How much
keep
sniper
playing,
ammo
keep
do you have?
doing that shit.
I
They
need sniper
poured
ammo,
it
yeah.
somewhere. This truck is not taken anymore.
You sure?
Yeah, I don't see anyone in the truck. We could take it if we go now.
Okay.
They're
We come
all
back
around
to
here.
report. One of them is knocked, I believe. Yeah, one of them is knocked. Come.
I'm coming. I'm coming.
They took it back. Maybe one of us play here and watch the back real quick.
I am. Are
2
they
to 4
inside
here.
or what?
Spitfire. No,
on
they're not
that.
inside. They took the port here. Look, they're
Hey,
resing. They're
resing
resing.
here.
I'm taking the Spitfire.
He's gonna get one of them up. We should get in this.
Yeah.
Raid dead. Crypto dead.
Nice.
Gibby one.
Nice. Be careful. You got that.
All dead. All dead.
Nice. Keep
Okay,
playing. Keep playing.
watch
with
your
that.
back. Watch the
Look.
fucking choke behind us.
I go look. I look.
I'm changing gun. I have no ammo.
Do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of fucking shit here.
You don't have heavy mag?
Give me 2 seconds. No heavy. Give me 2 seconds. I need to hear. Yeah, here. They're up in choke.
3 bats here. Come grab this dude.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
coming.
they're
I
up
have
in the
8.
choke behind
I
us
have
here.
8 bats. I have 8 bats, 12 cells. Yeah, we need to full defend that.
Yeah.
Full defend our back. I only got 2 kills, by the way. I finished one on the ground.
Nah, that was
actually.
perfect. That was perfect. Good shit.
Yeah, right here in this choke. 35
Yeah.
blue, 70
Raising
blue on
this one.
Gibby. I'm gonna get
Nice,
red
nice.
now. They have
You
blue
do
armor
that,
still.
RPR, you hold
Right
that.
here.
I have Spitfire. You got
Yeah,
that,
we
RPR,
should
okay?
all hold it. We should all hold it.
I'm
Okay.
here now. I
Or
have
at
wingman.
least 2 of us hold it.
I'll carry a bunch of shit here. From these
Dude,
guys.
I should play in the tower and I can ult away. And someone needs to play the high ground. Listen to me. I'm
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
the
I
tower
listen
and I can ult to you
You,
guys.
you want me to play here?
Yes, play here.
There's a crafter on us, by the way.
Don't give a fuck. I have 8 bats.
I'm making one. I got one.
They're here, they're here. 86 headshot rate.
Nice, keep going.
Cracked him, obviously. We need to kill this team. Like you don't understand. A team up
Yeah.
here with bow now.
This is so much playable also, by the way.
I'm getting griefed. Might come here now, Tashin.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna leave the tower now because I'm getting griefed by this
Good,
fucking
good,
idiotic
good,
team.
good. I'll be close to you, so.
I'm getting shot.
Yeah,
I
this
think you
team
know
is
they're
griefing now.
not. They're gonna play on this side 100%.
Yeah, they will. We're fine.
I don't wanna lose our truck. Is it okay I stay there?
Yeah. But we need to also watch the back. We're all leaving, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
getting hit
holding
now.
truck. I'm holding truck. I have Spitfire.
I just full healed again. I just full healed again.
Flying. Look at him. He flew on high ground alone.
Yeah.
45.
I think,
35.
Tashin, I think this team went here and they're gonna play this.
Okay, I'm not watching behind then.
I know, I think we should still watch behind.
Who smokes that?
That team from high ground,
Okay.
Still watch the back until...
Yeah,
they're flying.
I'm holding this.
We're like #1 in priority for them.
Hit
38.
48.
Where are they gonna go?
I don't know.
One of them got knocked, two of them got knocked.
Yeah, one got knocked. Two got
Two of
knocked.
them got knocked. I'm watching our back still.
Yeah. We need to be careful of this over here.
Okay, back is good. We could fucking shit on this team in the field. Get
I'll
angles
calm
on them.
RP, I'm down. Let me hit quick.
Ooh, we're good. We play on our spot here.
Yeah, right here.
We just have to watch our back here. We have to defend our back here.
Do you want me to come or do I stay and hold this?
You stay on truck.
I'm truck.
I'm about hard.
Me and Tashin are just gonna fucking be ego here. Not let them push here. They have a gold armor on the left guy. Knocked him!
Nice.
Nice.
I'm
First,
coming.
can you?
Nading his body, I'm trying.
They're resting.
They're gonna rest. They Gibby ulted, that's good. We got their Gibby ult out.
Okay, good. Keep slaying, boys. Keep slaying.
Crack the Gibby! He got knocked, I think. Yeah, they got knocked. Okay, but don't go too aggressive.
Going up top.
Just
I
try and
crack
finish
on
that.
top. Yeah.
I'm gonna get a little bit closer.
Damn it,
The race is TPing right now, by the way.
Yeah. Great has no Q.
Dude, she went back.
I can almost finish this guy. Got him. Finished him. They're only a
good
duo
shit.
now.
I
Yeah.
have DT by the way.
Okay,
Good,
can you
good.
shoot him? Careful up
I'm
top
hit,
is
I'm hit.
looking. Yeah, just heal
Alright.
and rock.
How much heavy you have?
A lot.
Give me.
Here, come here.
He's on the body.
Come here, come here.
Just
We no longer care about the duo.
It is playable on them, by the way, up there. But it's not a lot of it is in.
That's fine. We're gonna play like we played yesterday.
Yeah. I have a bunch of cells and medkits and everything.
Yeah, I have 8 fucking bats, bro, and there's 3
I have
dead
2.
motherfuckers here, dude.
Can I get 2 bats?
Yeah, come here. Come to me. This duo's flying.
Yeah.
45 gold on one.
I'm behind you.
Here,
They're
2
out
bats.
bouncing, these guys. I got him. Look behind us. Don't
They
give
landed
them
here. They landed here on this fucking. They're dead, I think. They're full dead, yeah. Top 9.
Yeah.
Team in the truck, 45 purple.
Team down here also. And down the little downstairs thing.
Okay, we're in here.
We're in here, yeah.
We have a caustic down there.
Yeah.
Dude, GBL, I'm one up here. They're all dead.
No, they're fucking.
We got Gibby ulted. What?
They give you all that? It's fine, it's fine.
They're gonna res up there. It's a duo. You should maybe
Shut
Gibby
up.
ult them.
They died.
They died. Okay,
No,
perfect.
never mind,
Perfect. No, one is still up there. I got a tether on him.
19.
Nade him if you have nades.
I shot him.
This is in next zone.
Yeah, are we good? The next zone?
I don't know. I don't know what that looks like right there.
Looks like a good, decent. But we also have these rocks up here on me. As long as we, yeah, as long as we fucking keep the truck away.
He was the guy on my ping.
We gotta hold these
I
team
tethered
also.
him up there. Yeah, is this team in next zone? Yes, they are. Look, they drop. I'm shitting on them. Cracked one. Gibby dead. I didn't get the kill though. Caustic one.
Caustic one, nice.
Shoot the knocked him.
Right here.
Nice. Last guy here. Let him fucking corrupt ult him. Nice. Now break the drone. Guy's still here, right? Or did he die?
Yeah, he's still there. I think.
Nope.
I'm
No.
still on 5.
There's still a team out there. They're getting fucked
Yeah,
on.
they're gonna get shit on. We're gonna play edge here. We just have to watch the truck. Okay, we gotta shit on this truck. That's
Is this
fine.
playable?
They're gonna. This team won't be able to. We literally have to watch the truck and hide. It's playable, and up here is playable. It's gonna have to be playable.
Yeah.
Roll on the valve.
Yeah.
Wait, I have a Moby.
Wait, yeah, put a Moby down right here.
I can't.
You can't put one down there?
No. I can't put it anywhere. There we go. This is the furthest I could put it.
Vault ulting.
There's 60 on one guy. They're gonna fucking out of bounds.
Do you guys have Mobies? They're gonna oob us. They're gonna oob us.
No.
They're oobing
No
us.
Moby.
Do I ult them?
You might have to.
I'm there.
You ulted it?
Yeah. Cracked
Yeah,
one.
they're dropping.
Give me low, give me cracked. I cracked all of them. Knocked
They
two.
give you ulted.
I knocked one, I mean. We just
Wait.
killed.
We have zone. We wait.
I got a kill.
They died. Okay, now we just look here. Look at this window here. We don't let them. We can also play close to them. One of us.
Yeah.
I think.
Shooting him.
Yeah, they can't peek. These guys can't peek.
They're
How
still
much?
not dead yet. I have 53.
How much?
Yet.
53 what?
53 bullets in my master Spitfire.
Oh, okay. I have 300 heavy on me.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I have 50 heavy, bro. Drop me some.
here. Got the 2 stacks.
There's a guy behind that bin. He died.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Top
Right.
4. This team is
Four
what we have to
11.
focus, dude. We gotta.
have a room.
We have to kill this team.
Yeah.
The right
The
team.
truck?
Yeah. Truck team needs to die later. I'm
There's
batting.
a duel somewhere.
Wait, I might die here, bro.
Crack him.
Holy
They're behind
shit.
me.
I can't find a safe spot. This guy keeps peeking.
I cracked him. Yeah, I know.
He's close to us. They're getting angles on us.
Dude, I might get knocked here also.
No, I tethered them. I tethered them behind
I
the truck.
have 5 bullets left.
Do you have ultac still?
No, I used it.
Okay, we're gonna have to shit on them. We might have to bubble on them and kill them, dude.
They don't have a gibby, so I can bubble down here.
Yeah. We have to bubble on them and kill them, I think.
Now?
Yeah, go with me,
Here.
Bulk 70.
They're fucking. They're TPing. They're TPing. They fucking.
Ash on me.
I can't see.
One. Dead. I gotta swap. I'm good. Go behind the bin.
I'm good.
They're fighting. Last 2 teams are fighting. I'm tethering. I'm above them. Tethered one. 1 HP. Valk dead.
Brave one. Dead. One
Headshot.
outside.
Give me 1 headshot.
You alone. I headshot him. I cracked him. Nice, boys.
Well played, boys.
God, this is a good game. We got a shit ton of kills.
Good. That's what we needed,
I
man.
think we got a 14 kill game right there. That was what we needed, boys.
I don't know what the fuck
Well
we got, but we
played. That
got a
was
lot.
perfect. A bubble down.
what we needed.
Bubble down close to them, dude, and
Yeah,
just
just
fucking.
fucking
Oh
smoke
my
them.
god. Like, what are they
Good
gonna
job,
do?
boys.
I knew there was a duo, and I had a fucking feeling it was them.
Beautiful game.
God, no, I think.
Body headshot Valk. Body headshot Crypto. Dude, come on. Double headshot right after. Dude, come on, dude. Like, come on. The warm up on you guys was too good with the wing, dude.
Let's see.
What was that? 14. I said it.
How'd you fucking know?
I'm special. That's why.
That's 26 points.
26 points.
I'm fucking out of the 10 kills. I
2,000 points, dude.
had a fucking 10 kills to that bitch, dude.
Yeah.
Good fucking job, boys. We should be now. Let me look.
26.9. That is a 30. Wait, what was that? 26 points? That's 40 points we have.
We are third right
GMT
now.
is number 1, I think. We're third now.
GMT and Hardeki's team are tied for first place with 55. We are third with
50.
40. We can still beat
Oh,
them.
40? What? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have 40.
Never mind. Yeah.
We can still beat them.
Yeah.
We're only 15 points behind both of them.
We needed that. Fuck, we needed that. That was a good fucking play.
Yeah.
We played that so well. Good shit, boys. Wait,
Game was-
is it last game now? No, it's not, is
No,
it?
two more.
Two more.
We just played
Okay.
first World's Edge. That was fucking good, guys. We've cleaned it up. We fucking watched our back and everything, and we just fucking farmed. Here, sending you code.
Good walking up on the team and seeing that they're getting fucking
Yeah, they tried to
TP'd out or whatever.
They tried to port somewhere out, and one of them got knocked, and I just saw a fucking blue knockdown. It was free fucking. And I walked in and I killed all of them, except I mean I didn't get one kill because he was knocked, but
Yeah, 2. Perfect. Yeah, nice. Well played, guys. We need that. We needed that.
I go pee and go water. We're back 1 sec.
Hello?
Dude, I was so sad. I thought I fucking wasted my GB ult on the guy out of bounds, dude. I was like, no way. But I hit fucking all of them 2 times.
Thanks, you did.
I was about to be like, damn, fuck you, we're fucked. We're fucked now.
What's happening?
But when I
son?
GB ulted, the guy's out of bounds, dude.
Yeah.
I regretted it so hard when I GB ulted.
Was it not good?
No, it was good GB ult, but I was like, dude, there's no way this is gonna do fucking anything. But I hit all of them 2 times each.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
That was really good.
I know. I was scared I fucking, you know. Yeah, I was scared I fucking wasted that bitch.
You guys need to watch my sentinel shots later, dude.
Yeah, you
Dude.
popped off.
No, that team is molding. I need to watch their POV and see how much they're molding.
Oh yeah.
I did
Got
3
Sentinel.
kills.
We got Sentinel again. I got
Dude.
cracked. You
The
got
shit,
cracked too? Oh,
the shit
I
was
got
going
cracked.
crazy.
Wait, I got cracked again. Popped my bat. Popped up. Wait, cracked. Never mind. Popped one more bat.
I only managed to knock 3 man, but every time I peeked, I headshot this guy, headshot that other team, one guy, headshot that one guy, dude over there, cracked him over there. This is good, dude. I love this
It
guy.
was looking bad for us in the end. It wasn't looking like a win, but 100% the play was fight the truck team, free up that side for ourselves, and then hope that on the other side of the circle they're fighting and we can third party, right? If we have a clean fucking wipe, and our wipe was really fucking clean.
Yeah.
So then the third party was fucking perfect. I almost threw there in the end because I knocked the Valk and I headshot the crypto, but I kept over peeking instead of like maybe playing a little bit more safer in the end and not giving you a 1v1. But I did do a lot of damage to him, so like
Yeah.
I believe that you were gonna smoke him.
Yeah. I would have just shot his knockdown shield. I didn't give a fuck. I was shooting his knockdown shield right there.
Yeah.
We're playing really well right now. It's good.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I did not tell you guys in the first like 2 games. We keep playing like we're playing. We're just gonna win a game because we're playing good. We're fighting good. We're rotating good. It's just stupid shit that like we died to you falling off a fucking roof, or we died to fucking what happened second game 2? We didn't check our back for fucking a second and we get inted. Like we're getting in good spots. We're doing well. We're just fucking ourselves with stupid little small things. But we're winning games because we're putting ourselves in spots where we can win games. Game 3, I didn't put us in a spot where we can win game. That's on me. But
That's okay.
we move on from there.
Oh, that we're so lucky that fucking replicator got there. The odds of the replicator fucking landing
Well,
right there. What a stat.
I also had a fucking Mobi, so maybe I could have placed it where the replicator
Yeah, but like
is.
that fucking replicator fucking blocked like half or shit right there.
Yeah, I did. It is pretty good. But I mean, if we didn't see that, we'd probably just int the truck, you know?
Hmm.
And we just fight the truck instead. Oh. Well, they don't want to fucking look at us anymore. Yeah, I ran out with my fucking Mobi in my hand, just fucking running in the open, just trying to place it anywhere, dude. Literally anywhere.
Mm. I was watching you just running in a circle. Just
Yeah, I fucking placed it instantly. I was just spamming left click and fucking going crazy.
This Valgold on Shiv is fucking crazy, dude.
They went on the mountain, right? We
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you were fucking them with that ult,
Yeah,
bro.
dude, look at that. It did fucking 400 damage, dude.
That was definitely a good ult. No fucking way. They had nothing to fucking do there. Because they also don't, like, they used their dome, I think, to Valkult, right? So they had no chance.
Dude, I love Sweet, dude. So nice. He's so nice.
Sweet is full screened on you, bro.
Yeah, he said, well played by Mandy. Oh, I will full screen Mandy now. He's so nice, dude. he's about to see some fucking crazy wingman shit. I picked up wingman, completely empty. One click of ammo, no mag, no nothing, dude. Straight out, body headshot the first guy I see.
Dude, this was rough, bro. I almost went down. They had multiple angles on my ass.
Same.
I was just wiggling my fucking booty. 15 seconds, by the way.
No, they're not gonna give us our issue, dude. They're not gonna give us a fucking issue.
What?
Dude, fuck it. He just said we're about to fucking He said, dude, no more Spitfire, man. Yeah?
Starting.
Oh no, we started, dude.
Can't watch it, dude. No. Good job pulling back on that fucking Ash, Taishin, and helping me.
Yeah, I got you, bro. I almost died to him.
Yeah. Same. I saw the white armor on him. Yeah, you're the best, man. The holy shit. You're the best for clutching this stupid position I put you in.
Was that a headshot, Mandy?
Body
Yeah.
shot, I think. Oh, it was headshot?
Yeah, I think so.
I think you headshot him once, I headshot him once, and then you body shotted him.
Yeah. Oh my god, this is why I love competing, dude.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Fuck yeah.
King is Sentinel. That shit was fire, man.
Dude, you were fucking getting.
Dude, I
We
don't
had
know,
5 kills before I could even fucking blink, dude.
Dude, that team that pushed us in the start, I was like, dude, there's no way they're gonna throw our entire fucking game.
Hey, we
When
got
they
a
TP'd into us?
we got a
Yeah,
14 kill win, baby. We win on tiebreaker now, that's for sure, dude.
Hopefully.
Cause Gambit only got 10, I think.
That's us. And my bronze badge. You like it?
Yeah, fogging off, dude.
See that? You see that champion, bro?
Oh,
He's cracked
man.
Sentinel.
I'm going down to Shin. You
Yeah.
guys camp. We love this zone, and we have crafted. Yeah, in the start of that last game, it was pretty iffy with how many teams were just rushing at us, but we shit on that one team that had pushes in the truck. No
Yeah.
fucking chance, dude.
Oh yeah.
Haha, look what I found.
Sentinel.
It's so far, bro. I don't think I can do it.
Dude, look at this fucking zone.
Where's this end?
It's like here. I think. Or like
We
up
play
here.
from here or
We
what?
play from Overlook. No, we play from Overlook. We zip
Yeah,
over.
yeah. Okay, yeah. Agreed. Oh, Sentinel for Tashina, this one.
Yeah,
Wingman
it's
tier 2.
Fuck yeah. Careful for GMT doing some stupid shit like
They're
running up
fucking
the hill.
straight up fucking walking towards us right now. I can smell Gnaska through the monitor.
I should just move to you guys then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should. When it's this zone like this station and you camp, you move early because I always have to fucking run away from them.
Yeah.
Cargo bot above you.
I got it.
Yeah. Oh! Blue! I found gold.
Nice.
I have a bow, Bandy. You want bow? You want to craft?
Oh yeah, that's not bad, yeah. I just don't have a scope or anything.
Someone get
Yeah,
the
I don't
fucking
have it.
blue in the fucking building.
I already have blue, I already have blue.
Look at this shit.
Yeah,
Yes,
drop,
I
yeah,
just-
I'm dropping
I
this.
just-
I'll take the blue then.
Relax, relax.
I dropped the blue close.
I'm gold, so I'm gonna give you guys all the bats. I just want cells and syringes.
Do I play bow here? I don't even have a fucking... I don't even have a scope for it. Dude, we didn't loot downstairs, by the way.
Yo,
We
this-
did
we
not.
need to look out.
Yeah. I have R9 right now. Did you drop the bow up there?
Yeah, it's on the crafted, bro.
Okay.
Okay, we gotta start looking around now. You and me, Mande. Let the shin
Yeah.
hit shut up. I can craft shit for you guys. Take
Do it,
this
do it.
bat, Mande. Give me your cells. I
Yeah.
don't know how much you have.
Do you have mine?
I have 10 now.
I'm just
I'm gonna
crafting
craft more
2-time
bats
ammo.
for you.
Yeah, I'm crafting 2-time ammo and then I'm going up and holding top, okay?
Okay, I'm gonna craft a fucking bag as well, I think.
I think I should do it too. I'm getting the crafting
Down
shit
here?
right now.
Someone's up this hill. Close to us.
I'm going up high ground. Fuck, I want to go downstairs and loot, but I'm so scared there's someone there.
I don't need bats, so I'm just dropping them on the ground here.
You took a zip up, right? Just for you.
Yeah.
Okay, Tashin, bat right here, and there's one more green crafted right now.
On my way. I'm gonna craft some ammo and batteries.
What ammo do you need?
I need energy and sentinel. It's fine. Dude, Alistar's good with sentinel. Just hold left click for the boys.
Yeah.
I'm looking around us.
I have 10 cells, 7 syringes, and I have a phoenix.
No one has a 1 to 2 timer or something?
Nothing. I can look around for you.
That'd be nice. We didn't loot downstairs, but it's a little bit risky.
I can look downstairs on my ult as well.
Okay.
I think. Tashin maybe come with me.
I will.
We're
One
good,
more
we're good.
bat.
2 timer, 3 time, anything.
Yeah. Oh, I'm dropping 301. I'm picking up this PK.
Good.
Juice 301 here, like so much ammo.
There's two
There's
bats
a
I can
mastiff
carry.
below. Okay, I can carry some. I have a big bag.
Cells? Carry
No,
the cells?
no fucking. Yeah, I got them all. Another mastiff below. Man, what do you have
No
for guns?
Bow mastiff.
Okay.
Mandy, can I set up here? I set it together.
Yeah.
I have
Okay, I'm carrying 2 bats for you guys that I don't need.
Give me. I got space.
I'm gonna carry more nades then. There's a bunch of nades here, dude.
Fuck.
Where'd I drop the fucking extras? What is wrong with me? Okay, this one.
105.
Nice. Can we... RPI,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit risky. Can we go to these and loot them?
I can go to these and you can
There's
look
3.
over me.
I will. I haven't seen anyone fly in or anything.
Yeah, I go for these. You look
fine.
over me.
I'm looking over you. Tashin, I'm not looking anywhere close to you right now. I'm looking with RPI.
Tashin, you gotta look more north now. 100%.
Yo.
No fucking Gnaska walking up to you and shit like that.
They're in here. Kineska's in here.
Fucking cells, which I'll take. 2 timer. Oh my god.
Nice. Holy fuck, that was big.
That was gigantic, actually. People don't understand how big that was. You can even craft more ammo, man, if you want.
I want to.
I have 50. I could craft you more ammo.
I have 60.
Okay, you just
Fuck,
craft.
I wish I could make a fucking bag then.
Just craft. Yeah, I only made one for myself.
I got everything, yeah. Alright, 2?
I mean, I can give you my bag.
If Actually, I got a white one, but if you want.
Fuck you, no, fuck you, go fuck yourself.
I got 120
I
arrows. It
need a
should be
red
enough.
dot. I need a red dot. I have 18 cells that I'm carrying, but I'm gold armor, so.
Hey, dude, how do you know there wasn't 2-time over there? Hey, just a hunch, guys.
Just on.
Just a hunch. Hey, maybe. Oh, guys, can you check the? Dude, you know?
Yeah,
You
but
ever
definitely.
nobody fucking just flies up behind us here.
So how we're gonna play this is we're gonna go from here over here and fight for that high ground. Probably.
Should I go over here? Should I hold this entire right side?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that'll be good.
Then Taishin just needs to look west and shit.
I'm also looking south and west, but look where I am. I'm on a rock.
I need you blue, Mandy.
Okay,
Oh, wait,
I'm coming back. I can get it myself.
Okay, do it.
No. I mean, your ammos are. Isn't your ammo more limited than his?
True.
And he has this fucking big scope. You can just get that.
Yeah,
easy.
Taishin's very smart. Here. Nice, good shit.
I don't actually have to shoot at anyone, which is
Nah,
cringe.
I'll hold this side for you, okay?
I'm still shooting because
Give me 2 seconds, I need oil here.
I'm stupid. Dude, this truck is not
Hiding here.
taken.
Flying in here. Look.
Fuck your mom, bitch. Okay, what are they gonna do? We play this fucking roof and we fight them. We don't let them fucking live. Yeah, one's getting close here. Just get this fucking building.
Yeah, they're here.
Okay, I'm getting on the roof of this building. We just fight them. They're the only team in Overlook. And this is the freest 3v3 for us.
They're fucking going over 60 rates. They're porting in.
Yep. I'm marking it. I stuck the raid.
Took the portal back.
He took it back. One is in. I stuck another one.
You took it too.
They're not in zone.
I mollied it.
They're going back? Yeah, they're going back.
I'm going above. They have two blue armors, Raid and Gibby. We should fucking kill these guys.
GB dead.
Let's go.
GB dead here.
Okay, come with me. I'm gonna ult above them.
Go to the left side here.
Where are they?
Where's Gibby?
Below me here.
Right below.
He's already up.
Okay.
Gibby's alone. Careful, Tashin. You're being aggressive.
I'm on height.
Where are they? Can we see them?
Gibby's
the
straight
bench.
below us.
He's healing. We can't see.
Fuck, man.
Is he alone below us?
Yeah, he is.
Kill him.
Jump on him now.
1 HP. Nice.
Bubbling on him. Nice.
One guy here. On the stairs in front of me.
Play it safe, guys.
Here.
Yeah, play
Walk
safe.
with me.
Yeah.
He went to the circle thing.
I'm with RPI.
Blue bag here. He's 100% here. I'm stringing.
Hold on a minute. Making sure I'm full.
Come with me.
I'm with you. Walk
Where did he
together, all
fucking
of
go?
us.
He could be below. Come here.
I'm going down first.
Oh,
7, knock, dead.
100 on him. Valkyrie.
He's flying out, I think.
No, on me. Nice, boys. Okay, back to our spot.
There's PK engine on him.
Holy shit, I have so much juice. Thank you.
Match hitting.
Combat range.
Back to our spot, boys.
Good knock there, Tashin. Well played.
Dude, that ash ult is so fucking good, man.
There's a wingman. I need to stop for this quick.
Turbo here.
I'm crafting another medkit when I get up. Good fight.
Wait, audio. Trying to see if anyone took our shit. Think we're good. That's what we have to do when we're alone in Overlook and we know. We just fucking take fucking advantage of it and fucking shit on them.
Yeah, just get some good angle there, Taishin, on the knock, dude. It's so
Yeah,
good.
I've seen on your Sentinel is fucking ridiculous.
I'm telling you, motherfuckers. Keep paying me Sentinel.
Bro, and I fucking ash ulted right on top of them. They can't do anything.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I play sniper anymore. Tashin sniper is just like you can
Tashin-
get so many better like angles and shit. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I'm all.
Valkyrie main, yo.
Alright, give me 2 seconds. I need a little bit of audio here.
We can go beacon scan. No, we can't. It's in camp. What am I saying? Stupid idiot. I have 21 souls, by the way.
Kraber or Sentinel? I know.
Sentinel, I believe. They juiced up my
You
wing.
can dodge me, you fucking bitch.
Okay, get yourselves to red. If you can. If you'll have ammo for it. You can still craft ammo. I have 50 crafting. How much sniper ammo do you have,
I have
Tashin?
35.
I have 50 still.
Tashin, what is your secondary?
I have a wingman.
There is shotguns back there. You should probably grab
Yeah, I
one.
will.
I'll bring it
Yeah, I will
now
do that.
because it's zone 2. Bring it now. Do it now.
Yeah.
It's zone 2.
83 headshot on one guy here?
Can scan again? No, wait. No,
No, we
scanner.
can't. We can't.
Satch.
Yeah.
It's
sad,
okay,
man.
it's okay, we'll see.
This is still not taken, by the way. This truck.
Is there a team here?
I think so.
Like,
yeah.
can we take this later?
Yeah, we can take that later. But I don't see a team here.
No, I don't
There's a
see anyone either.
There's a fucking drop as well.
Yeah.
Did you bring yourself a gun, Tishin? You good?
Yeah, I have a PK.
Okay, we can
Okay.
play this shock. We can play this shock. We should go now, honestly, because it's free.
Yeah. Okay.
We can also play high ground, but
High
it's
ground-
not as good.
high ground's
I
too
gone
fun.
Sentinel will be fucking, dude. Will be fucking.
Okay, listen. How about you guys play high ground and I'll play truck, but we take it now.
Yeah, play high ground.
Yeah.
Because if someone
I'm
takes a
dropping-
shock, we're fucked.
I need to drop my PK here and take my Sentinel.
Drop it here somewhere.
Kraber! They have Kraber here. Yeah.
That's not good.
I don't think we play up top then.
Which one has Kraber?
This guy right here.
Okay, look over
It's
me here.
fine.
I'm going to the truck, checking if it's free.
Yeah.
It is
Kraber on
free.
crypto.
Okay.
It's massive. That's a Kraber 100%.
I
There's no
think
way
we
not.
still play for that fucking high ground though. But we just play safe. Or like play right below it. But I feel like the Shin should be up here. As long as he doesn't die.
Really.
It's just the RNG type beat though.
I know, but like it's such a like that. Look how much
It's a
space
good
we
spot.
lose.
Good fucking spot, yeah, I know.
There's a rat here. Just
I don't
saying.
think anyone is in here either. No, there they are.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah. I just saw him pick
Full
me.
team in the zone.
We're in the
Yeah.
zone.
Maybe we look for the third party on the Kraber team.
Yeah, that's what I want. That's why I want. I
Yeah.
want you guys to play up here.
They're fighting hard.
I can stay there, but
Why is this Val peeking when he has gold armor? Crypto looking at me? Yeah, go back, Ganeska.
yeah, they don't want to show they have Kraber. I saw it.
I know,
There's no way
Crypto.
that's not a Kraber.
Okay, you guys are gonna zip over, and I'm just holding this for now. Is there people here? Were you pinging? Tashin?
I'm just shooting everyone.
No,
Third
no,
party.
I'm pinging to make sure see if it's in or not.
Okay. Okay, I'm fucking beating that guy, that's for sure. Okay, where is this gonna end? This is gonna end on this fucking cabin, probably.
I think so too. Holy fuck, that high ground is fucking juice, dude.
It is, but we can't die to our Kraber, but we also have to control it. We have to control that high ground. We have to have this high ground if we have truck, because then we're free kills to Kraber if we don't have high ground. Okay?
Yeah. They don't have Gibby on high though.
Yeah,
They
that
do
that is
not-
good.
They do not have Gibby on height.
Dude, why am I playing gold armor to Shin? You have Sentinel?
Yeah. I should take it, but
Yeah,
You
but
could
he's
charge your
red.
Sentinel and have a Kraber.
I have only 20 bullets now. I'm gonna switch
Okay,
to PK
okay.
soon.
Yeah, switch. Never mind.
Are we zipping over?
Yeah, you guys should zip over, yeah.
Yeah, they're fucking. They're just sitting here.
Yeah, just be careful not to die. Always be full health.
They have a Kraber. They have a Gibby. Never mind.
Yeah, I'll give
Gibby's
you.
over 51.
We're in on me. We're in on my head glitch. We're gonna play me.
Yeah.
We're gonna play me right here.
We'll play later, right? No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, but like, these guys have really good angles on us. No, actually they don't. They actually don't. We can't get Krabered.
Oh, I fucking fell down. I can't. I can't stay up there anymore.
Okay, it's fine. We
I
can just
can-
play on me. We can,
Okay.
Tashin can just look over there. Yeah, Tashin can just fly over. They're crypto droning. They know they have it. They know they have it now. They know they have that now. They crypto drone that entire high ground. They know it's
I
free.
know.
That's really bad for us. That is really fucking bad for us.
They got
Yeah,
blue
they're
armor.
right here.
Yeah,
They're right here. They're right here. Already peeking with Kraber. Don't give them shots. They want to fight us for
Boy,
this.
look where this is in right now.
Yeah, it is, but we can't give them shots with Kraber. They're looking for us right
I'm
now.
not peeking. I'm not peeking at all, boy.
They're looking with Kraber for us right
They're
now.
looking on the right side. I don't know if they can see you.
They can't. I'm behind
Yeah.
a rock. There's no way they can see us. Don't give them anything, because if they hit one
I'm
Kraber
not.
shot, they're gonna push.
They're going in, yeah.
They're gonna probably end up coexisting here, and we shit on them with angles then. Now
Yeah.
one nade only, but when we have Gibby ult and shit.
Yeah.
I don't see them anymore, by the way. No, they're still here. They're
are,
still,
are,
they're still
yeah,
up
yeah.
here.
Just, I'm looking.
Oh,
through
yeah,
the
window? Okay.
Yeah.
Mintashin's in corners right now.
He's on the right side right now, the Kraber guy.
Okay.
Oh, that's the Wraith. I don't know where the Kraber guy is. Never mind. Kraber guy is straight in the middle. He's just looking.
Who has Kraber?
Crypto.
Okay. If he has Kraber, that means he can't fucking crypto ult us, because he's too busy shooting.
Yeah.
He's fucking good for us.
If you're shooting at someone else right now, I don't know who.
I hope they get contested up there.
God,
One
no.
team
They're,
flying.
they're walking to the left side right now.
Left side of the hill or what?
Yeah, left
Another
side
team
of the
flying. Headshot 76 flash on one guy on the building here. But this team might end us.
hill. No.
Dude, I headshot him 76 flash up here. Look on the mountain. I knocked him!
Nice, good shots, dude. The Gibby team is going right
I got the
side,
kill, I got the
Crypto
kill.
team is going far right.
Far?
Or
Can we
far
take
left,
control of
far
this?
Far left.
What, behind this rock or what?
They're not there. They went even further, I think.
Clear it, clear it, clear it, clear it. We're good, we're good, we got. No, they're here, they're here, they're here. Chill.
Going back. I'm going down their hole.
I'm getting shot by everyone and their mom. Careful, they might.
They
They're
all
getting
did.
hell angle on us. You should bubble now,
Doubling.
They're getting hell angles on us. You might. Did you
Here.
ult them?
No, they use Gibby ult.
Okay, you might have to give ult them next if this fucking
I'm
keeps
doing
happening.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think they're getting fucking hard. Break the fucking drone.
Crypto
I'm getting
ult on
naded.
them.
I'm getting naded. I'm chilling.
Not hitting anyone.
Okay. You think it's clear then? Well, how are we not hitting?
I don't know.
Hey, Drake, looking.
They're looking for us here.
Okay, that's fine. We have really good angle here.
Yeah.
I think they're fucking dying there. Crypto knocked. Crypto is knocked here.
There's the team on the other side of us.
Okay, I know.
I heard them.
Yeah, they're straight up just looking at us. The other team.
Okay, that's fine.
They're
Don't give them
looking for
angle.
it.
Just look at here. This fucking Kraber team keeps looking. We need our bubble for next. We're gonna fucking ash
I got
from the
bubble, I
fucking
got
cart
bubble.
or some shit.
I
This
got
team on
bubble
our left can't do anything. We can maybe
Yes.
fight them for this pocket.
Yeah.
For the pocket. Okay.
Roof is not playable, right?
It is for delaying purposes only.
Okay. Yeah.
The left side is nice to mark. The left side's call is nice.
Yeah, no, but just that one team. And there's a crypto team with a Kraber on the right. So we probably have to go left to avoid getting crypto
Okay.
fucking.
Yeah.
Crypto drone on left. We might get the crypto ulted from the left though.
Keep an eye for the drone. Destroy it if possible.
Yeah, there's both crypto teams on the right and on the
They're
left.
walking up, right?
Yeah, just slowly walk here with me. He's
I
still
see
up there,
shot.
right?
I don't
Or
know.
no? He's not.
No. They're looking from the left side.
Yeah, they're still looking over. 45 purple on one. Red. Is that in? Holy shit.
No, it's not.
They have crypto drone ready here. They're gonna fight and we're gonna bubble on them. Just wait behind this rock.
The truck is in.
They have to fight here.
Yeah.
Come above them now. Red 45 purple. Bubble now. Bubble now.
Following at you.
We're gonna fight left.
They're going on us. That's in.
Come
The
in me,
truck
come
is
in me. Fuck, nade. Holy shield.
Holding.
Fuck,
No.
man.
We played, dude. The right side is so free.
Was it? I mean,
Yeah, I said it like 2 times. The
You
truck is
didn't.
free. The
You
truck
didn't.
is so free.
You said that's in. You didn't say anything else. Like you didn't
No,
say.
I said truck is free. Truck is free.
What truck?
The one on the right side, it was in. No one had angles or anything on us.
What truck? What is a truck for you?
The fucking big car.
The big cart in the middle of the zone?
No, but there's a car on the train tracks. That's in, completely in.
I didn't fucking see it.
No, yeah, I just said it like 3
Oh,
times.
Yeah,
said,
you're pinging, you're pinging and saying that's in. You need to tell me.
Before I said the truck is in, we can play the truck. And you said
I didn't
push
know
over
what you
them, and I just went over.
I had no idea what you were talking about.
I wanna see that. I wanna see
Oh,
that.
dude, the truck was so free. It's the freest shit I've seen in my life, dude. The entire backside of the truck. There's not a single person that can peek us. The Gnescas team is gonna fucking peek up 100%.
I didn't see what you were talking about at all.
Oh my god, it's the freest shit I've ever seen in my life, dude.
Oh,
6
man.
points. Yeah, I don't know what truck you're even talking about.
The one in front of us. There's
What?
straight up just a truck on the. They added a truck on the train tracks.
Forklift. You mean one yellow forklift?
No, it's a truck.
I have no
It
idea
is
what
a
you mean.
car.
It's almost up. It's almost up again, Mo. Graski. Oh god. If you're almost up,
Look
you
at the
win,
truck. Oh,
Scam.
you can't see that. Never mind.
I can't see how much is Solaris. They're in shit on right now. The Crypto Kraber team wins.
Oh,
They were
they're
a
out,
duo. They were a duo holding the cart the entire time.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man. That guy's it's 3v1. Jump on him and kill him, please.
He wins.
No fucking way. No.
Oh.
I don't know what truck you're talking about.
Dude, right next to the drop, there's a whole fucking truck in zone. Like a fucking car. A whole car. You can't stand inside it, but it's a. Holy shit, that
I
was
need-
so free, dude.
I need to see what you're talking about.
You'll see. Dude, oh my fucking god, the entire fucking bitch was in.
Fuck, dude. I didn't see that at all either.
You were so far from us though, man. They're like, if you were closer to us, you bubbled like right after I crypto ult, I would have not taken that much damage
Yeah, I
and we
would-
could
I
have
would
had a
fucking-
better fight.
Yeah, but I got hit in the side, and we got thermited, but I slid jumped towards you, as soon as the crypto drone
Yeah,
was
but
going
I've
out.
taken so much fucking. I got shit on so fucking hard in the meantime.
I don't know.
Damn it, dude. That fucking car was in? Where
The
is it? I
whole
want to see.
fucking bitch was in, dude. It was the freest shit I've seen in my fucking life, dude.
I see now the truck. What you're talking about?
Yeah, the entire thing was in.
I didn't fucking see that at all. I was too
I said it
focused
like
on
3
fighting the
times.
left team.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but I don't know, like, you're telling me, like, while I'm calling, you're trying to tell me something, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah,
trying to
no,
think
no,
of
no.
the next spot, and you're screaming at me, this is in, like, I don't know what this is. That's all I'm hearing.
Pinging, but I guess.
That's all I'm hearing, and all I'm thinking about is we have to fight that left team, and we have to fucking kill them, or we're gonna lose.
Fuck, dude. It's okay though. We got one more, right? One more game.
Yeah.
One more.
What is that? 4-point game?
6. We got 10, so 2 points for.
Oh
placing.
shit, we got 6 points game.
Yeah.
That was not bad. Not bad.
Who's
It's fine.
third?
Ascent beat us though, because they got a big one. But we are 9 points ahead of. No, we are 11 points ahead of 5th place. So we are top 4 guaranteed. We are 10 points behind 2nd. And we are. How much points is that? 4 plus 5. 19 points behind GMT. We can still probably win this shit. If
Yeah.
GMT dies early and we get a good game, we can win this whole fucking tournament.
Yeah,
We can get 2nd for sure. Because we're only 10 points behind Hardeki and them.
I'm restarting my entire game right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see or hear you there. I was too focused on fucking
I don't know.
thinking of how we're gonna fight the crypto ult on the left. Honestly, I didn't even fucking see that truck.
Dude, I think I even fucking said it before
Yeah,
we went.
but you did, and you pinged a rock on the right, and then I looked at that rock, a small rock on the right side of the road. I looked at it, And I was like, there's no fucking way 3 people can fit behind a rock. And then I fucking said, we gotta go left.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the rock, not about the truck. But also, they were hard peeking me from left while I was on the train tracks. So I couldn't even look your way because I'm getting hard peeked by 3 people jumping up and
Yeah, I
shooting
know.
at me. And that's why I wanted us to stick together because I know we're getting crypto ulted and we need to bubble right after crypto ult so we can heal. I gave you the code.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
oh there. No one. I misclicked.
It's okay, we're still we can still fucking come back from this shit. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
very confusing. I had no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I didn't want to ruin your plan or anything either.
Yeah, fucking completely like
Literally look for my POV and you'll see if there's the freest shit in the world, dude.
I completely disregarded the fucking truck. I didn't even see it. Like I didn't even register it in my brain.
Bro,
that
I
it
swear, same. I
exists.
didn't even I didn't knew that shit
It's like-
existed.
no, they just added it.
When?
Like last season.
Yeah, yeah.
I
That
knew it
makes
was
sense.
in. I knew it was in, dude.
I mentally did not even know that truck existed. Which is why I probably fucking ignored you, because I have no idea what you were talking about. Because, like, if we pull off a good fight on fucking GMT there, bro, we fucking have such a banger spot, man. I feel like we could have still won that fight. Was it close? Did we? I think we got one
No,
of full kill.
I got shit on. I got shit. I did 110 or something, and we were just fucking stuck in a little corner. We were like falling down while we were shooting.
Yeah. My actual didn't go as far as I wanted it to go. We need to like jump over, like in that fight we like had to bubble there, heal, and then jump over them somehow, like straight up jump over them, like spread out all over the place so they're in the corner and we're not in the corner. But then obviously we can get 1v3 the one of us if that happens.
And one guy took battery in front of my eyes.
No, I straight up didn't see a fucking truck, did.
Yeah, I think that was the winnable spot.
But now we know for the future,
Yeah,
well, that truck exists. 'Cause I had no idea the fucking thing existed, to be honest. Honestly, we could have even Ash ulted on the fucking building and then bubbled on the building.
Like on the what's
On
it
the
called?
cart, on the cart, yeah, on the cart.
Yeah.
On the roof, and then just re-stabilize and jump in and mop them.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one, dude.
Definitely shouldn't have fought the crypto, that's for sure. Crypto fucked us hard there.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that fucking. I mean, now we know we can play that truck. Like for future, now we know that that truck is really fucking. I mean, I don't know if it is strong. We didn't play it yet, but
It is strong, dude.
but
I was looking.
one
Right
thing
side
about-
there's nothing playable on the right side, so they can't stand on train tracks and shoot you, and nothing is playable on the left side.
wasn't there a
you
Kraber
can't
team
stand
on the
missions.
right side?
Yeah, but they had to go down. They can't do anything there. The entire backside of the truck is in RPR. That's what I was trying to say. Dude, no one. They can shoot your toes.
Can you play on the right side of the truck?
Yes.
Yeah, should have played it probably then. I mean, I had no idea it
look.
existed.
Yeah, look for my POV. They added it not that long ago. I think it's 1 or 2 seasons ago. Straight, literally just look for my POV right now.
I'm looking. I'm looking right now. Oh yeah, that would be fucking.
Yeah, it's juice, dude. Look how crazy it
yeah.
is.
Is it entirely in?
Wow, yeah, the entire side is backside, isn't?
Yeah, right here we were so split, so I got fucking hit for 60 flesh, man.
In this moment, we just had to go back to the car.
Yeah, look right,
Right
there.
here. Right here. Not the old.
I just said the track is in behind us,
Yeah,
but I had
yeah.
to fucking just full send.
Yeah, it's good that we all listen to each other there and just full send it.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
though you said, you know? But now we know.
Yeah, but now we know for
You
next
guys-
time that truck is in. That's really good. My ult fucking went nowhere, bro, and I fucking got hit for 100 using it, dude. But that I couldn't have put a better ult. I don't know. It didn't want to snap anywhere, so I just fucking put it anywhere.
Damn.
That's okay though.
I thought you were talking about the rocks on the right side of the fucking, like the little triangle, you know, the grass. There's like
Yeah.
2 small rocks that you could theoretically fit a raid behind, not a Gibby. I thought you were talking about that, but I didn't know fucking that whole truck existed there.
Yeah.
At least whenever we played that zone, that truck didn't exist, so I didn't fucking count on it. Like I even asked you what kind of truck are you talking about? Because I had no idea what the fuck you were talking about.
I don't know what you
After
want to call that. A fucking big car?
I don't know. Because I didn't know it existed. In my mind, I am like while I'm calling, I'm not always looking at what you're telling me because I'm
Yeah, I know.
building a plan, and I have a fucking mental image of the map because I know how the map looks. And in my head, that truck does not exist. I swear to God, that fucking truck never existed before.
No, they added 2. It's whatever.
Because I'm
Yeah,
like
it's
you're
coming
also
off.
calling that, and I'm also trading wingman shots on the left side of the road, trying to get them to fuck off because they're peeking hard. But yeah, I mean now I fucking know that truck is probably pretty strong for us.
It's very strong. It's crazy. No, it's not. You can't play right side at all, and you can't play left side. It's the freest shit I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, we played that
Now we know.
we play that truck next time, and then if it's bad even then, we just fucking asshole to the roof of the thing, and then we bubble on the roof, and we waste time and wait for a fucking third party or something.
Yeah.
My original
Fine.
idea was to go on the cart, but then I saw that their Crypto team was the only team on the left side there. Theoretically, if we win that fight in the pocket, we have like a game-winning spot.
Yeah, but yeah, true. I agree. If we won that fight, then we've been fine. But it's such a hard fight too.
Yeah,
When
the
you're like
Crypto-
100 HP, they can just fucking nade us when we had to jump down and shit. You know.
Crypto ult was so fucked, man. I fucking hate that fucking stupid character. Should have maybe panic ulted us on the roof of the cart instead.
That would have been a little bit better probably. And then we could actually stand on the roof and you could see the truck was in. We could slide over there.
We'd probably die though,
hindsight.
because we wouldn't have bubble.
It's hindsight though. You can always say shit like that.
Or at least I would die because I was like 40 health.
Yeah. Alright, last game.
Or whatever. At least good fight in Overlook, cleaning up that fucking team that was trying to like play behind us. That was really fucking good.
Big ol' roll.
Yeah, that
Let's
ending
go,
was
baby.
my bad. I didn't fucking know all about that shit.
It's okay. Fuck it. Go next.
Fucking G, mate. L fucking G, mate.
Oh, there's a big game here.
Last game, we can still win this fucking thing. How much are they ahead of us?
Sure.
19
20 plus?
points? 18, 19 points ahead of us?
Yeah, something like that. That's 1 dub, 10 kills. Come on.
Yeah, if we get like a 10 kill win, dude, we can still win the whole fucking thing. If anything, we can easily get second place here.
Yeah.
Easily. Not
Keep playing
no.
like we're playing. It's good.
Yeah, we're playing good. Except, we had a few
Yeah.
fuck ups. One from me, one
right
from you
there,
guys.
right, dude. The thing is, right there, I think we chill for a second. Also, we have the
Yeah, but the reason-
bubble is gone. We have an entire bubble. We got 8 more seconds or something on the bubble.
The reason I didn't chill, I wanted to chill on
They
hill,
walked up.
but they climbed. 2 of them climbed with shotguns in their hands in front of the
Yeah, I
bubble, and I had to peek and shoot at them to get them fuck off, which is when I got cracked, because they wanted to push the bubble for some reason,
Yeah.
which made me
They're bubble magnets. They
Which
see bubble, they run into it.
yeah, which made me peek out the bubble, shoot at them, get cracked again. But yeah, we should have
let's
definitely
go, baby.
chilled a bit more. My Ashul like clipped on a really bad spot though. If I managed
Yeah,
to
I
get
saw.
my Ashul deeper in, we maybe had a better shot.
Yeah, way better fight at least.
Cause like I couldn't clip it in. It wasn't clipping. It was clipping on the edge of the fucking highway, dude. Like, cringe.
Yeah, actually fucks up a lot if you're not patient enough. If you click it right away, shit happens with that shit.
Yeah, but I was
90% times fucks
I was
up.
also like 50 health, so I had to click it as soon as possible so I don't die midair.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go, baby. Come on.
Oh, 2 skins, Bog.
Yeah.
And we have crafted, but we
crafted.
probably can't craft. Well, you guys
Depends.
might. I can. Crafter only has 2
Depends on-
juicers as well.
Yeah. It's not a lot.
Not much, so might as well fuck off. Grab some bats and fuck off. You guys, I can't. I'm not gonna craft shit unless it pulls us. Even then, maybe I won't craft because GMT is gonna come. Yeah, just hit the big instantly. Play zone. We're playing good. A few fuck ups from all of us, but
It's whatever.
well, except for Tashin. Tashin doesn't fuck up here.
Hey. My Volk ults are on point now,
That's what I like about you. You fuck up and then
and I'm not
no
in.
more. There's a cargo boat coming in, guys. I can shoot it to
Yeah.
you guys. Yeah, I'm shooting it towards you guys.
Oh, thermal. Thermal probably. Thermal type B.
Rebel.
Thermal.
No, what do you mean thermal? Which
Oh
one?
wait, never mind. Yeah, holy shit.
What is this? It's this, right?
Yeah, I think so.
We play from landslide here. Playing from landslide was sick. Another beacon as well.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people are gonna play from landslide. They probably think it's gonna end on
Yeah, everyone's gonna go harvester side and play this shit.
probably. Staging.
Yeah, we do have to move quite soon. Let's get our armors up. If we can.
Yeah.
Maybe
If
even
I don't, yeah, I was about to say plug it.
Yeah, plug it once. Doesn't hurt anyone.
No,
301 here.
I got one.
I need a wingman. I'm on a fucking rampage and a
Oh.
peeker right now.
Boosted loader. Bringing it. I got vault key.
Ooh, the wall key would be sick. But we have to go now if we want to hit the wall. Like literally now. Go back
We have
would be
to?
fucking big. Yeah. We
I
have
go
to.
back with crazy.
We
I
have
got
to
boosted
literally
loader
go.
for you. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I don't know a wingman, but maybe I'll find one. Okay, I'm running towards the tunnel right now. I hope you're ballooning on me right now.
I'm on my way.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have to fucking
Yeah.
hurry.
Yeah,
Mastiff here. You need that?
I got one.
Okay.
Be careful in there.
Yeah. You're almost there, right?
And we're fucking. I'm just got the top balloon right now.
Okay.
Tashin is halfway up.
Okay, that it doesn't matter as long as you're here. You have the key. They're here. And I see people on the other side. They're running at me. Blue armor on both of them. I made them fuck off. I almost cracked the Gibby. You're fucking ego challenging me with wingman.
Am I plugging it?
Yeah, you can. You're real far.
Gold bag.
Nice poke.
No armor.
That's fine. Purple bolt
Crafting?
here.
I take.
Yeah, take this.
Okay, let's
Here.
go. You move.
Is it light mag or something?
Oh, you got the purple one? No, I need one too.
Let's go. We gotta go.
Let's go. Yeah,
If you guys see a wingman, I need it. I'm rampage right now.
I have 80 bullet light ammo right now.
Shit.
100.
Yeah, it's fucking not looking good.
I have a massive though. I'm close range. I'm good.
Yeah, same.
Fuck. We need more light.
Yeah.
Let's go zone.
Fuck,
Let's
my
try for
armor is
landslide.
dog pissed, dude.
Yeah. It is what it is. Maybe find one here in these 3 bins that you never know.
That'd be nice. Yeah, dude, I think there's one in the right bin.
I think
I
there's
got a
one on the
hunch.
left. They might come
Tiny
out to
hunch.
fucking choke, by the way. Careful.
Yeah. I got 10 cells, no bats at all.
I have 2 bats, 10 cells.
This.
Is that wingman or what?
I'll 2 cells.
Oh fuck, bat here and it's 2 cells.
I'll take.
There's a charge rifle.
I got a bunch of shit right now.
Let's go. We're wasting so much time.
Yeah.
Fuck, not having a lot of light fucking hurts, man.
Yeah, 100. Not even 100.
You have a 301?
Yeah.
What does Sheen have for light?
Car.
Car? And
100,
what
100 heavy. 100 light, sorry.
okay, but I can give you some heavy. You have 300 heavy. This
Yeah.
team above us,
Flying.
flying straight for us. What is this? Yeah, they're gonna fight us or some shit.
Oh,
Going for the
there's
tunnel?
inside.
Cutting us off.
What's the people inside tunnel?
That'd be
That would be
fucking great, wouldn't it? Cells here?
I'm walking up a little bit.
Listen, we can Valkult over the fucking mountain.
They're playing in here. Yeah.
We can
Fucking
Valkult over the
white
mountain
armor,
and go
man.
for this.
Yeah. Oh, there's light here. Let me take
For
it.
the truck, you say?
Yeah, to the truck we just fought last game.
Would it be better to just walk around and check it for safety?
Yeah, we can
I'll
also.
for you, yeah.
Hopefully.
And if worst case scenario, we can also go inside countdown. It's just fucking plug armor.
Yeah, this is also
Yeah.
like a really slow hitting zone. We can get
Yeah.
all the way up to here, bro, and fight for that from here.
And light mag type B too. That'd be nice.
Keep thinking I hear someone flying, but I don't. I kind of want you to go in countdown and plug your armor, bro.
We could be juiced in countdown. I'm dropping one.
I'm getting on the tower first.
I'm just walking behind Tashin. Straight on Tashin ass.
Yeah, I'm in tower. I can have a
Yeah.
look to this. Truck is free from what I can see. Unless we have Gnaska fucking. Nah, it is free.
We can also hit B.
We go countdown, we go
too
countdown.
far.
We go
I'm
countdown.
going.
We plug your armor once at least, and get some
Yeah.
bats. Get your light shit.
Yeah. I have
I'm
a lot of
crafting.
shit I can carry also. I got 2 full.
And we can craft backpacks. I have white.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can craft everything, we juice it up here. Light, Phoenix.
I'll drop in Phoenix. I don't
I
need
have two.
2.
Wingman, finally. I can drop you some heavy ammo here. There's attachments there, a
Yeah.
purple ball, a purple
need that, yeah.
barrel.
I'm dropping your light. I take heavy.
Okay, drop light then. Nice, good.
Here
Good
also.
comms. Good comms.
Okay, I'm gonna plug
I got a
one.
lot. One needs to look and
I'm
well,
just
2 guys
plugging
need to look.
first, I'm plugging first.
Yeah. I'm holding over here then. I think I'm bubbling when I plug my armor. Cause I die instantly.
No, there's white armors down here. Okay,
White
I'm
armor?
done.
Alright.
Yeah, there's.
Crafting purple backpack now.
Okay, I'll go look ahead of us for zone. I can also pick up more crafting shit and craft more if we need.
Crafting a fucking light mag also. There. I'm stacked now.
Nice.
Take a blue. I need to craft.
There. There.
Dude, we could play this as well. This is also in.
Dude, hitting a peak one more time could be sexy, but we already know where it
We
ends,
should
right?
hit it. We should have hit it. With lava
Wanna go?
fishing. Yeah. You have a lot of meds?
I have 2 medkits.
2 medkits
And
for the
some
strangers. Let's go towards it. Let's fucking hit it. It's zone 1 damage. We can fucking do it.
I'm popping medkit right here.
And then we come back
I'm-
where we came from.
Yeah, 1 bat still.
Oh, I need that. 1 bat, I have 4.
Can you drop 1? I'm right behind
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Can you give me one too?
We need to craft more, boys. How much crafting do we have?
30 only.
Yeah, we could craft 30 as well. We can all craft a bat.
I gotta craft a medkit instead. I'll be using 2 medkits for this.
I'm going back to craft bats already then.
No, you need
You
to
have
hit
to
the fucking
skin.
peak,
You have
dude.
to skin.
Oh, why are we running all together?
Because we need to protect you. What if someone's here?
I'm not worth.
Come on, we gotta hurry up.
Yeah, I am.
I'm gonna go back and craft.
Yeah, I just need Mandy in case. That's all.
Yeah.
Look at gold right there, by the way. I shot a gold
I'm
box.
doing I'm scanning it.
There's gold bag, I think. Yeah, gold bag on
It
it.
is. I'm grabbing it. I got the purple bag.
Oh. back.
Okay, this is definitely pulling south on us. Which is fine. We
Yeah,
can
it's the
still...
one that ends right here, I think, right?
Yeah, like the building is good.
Yeah,
Okay, we can fucking still walk over like crazy.
yeah.
I'm building some fucking...
Building medkits right now.
I'm building 2 bats and a medkit.
Can also craft 2 bags.
Not a medkit.
I don't think we have time.
I mean,
We tank
it's
the zone 2 also.
zone 2, it doesn't do that much damage. Just
No, we're gonna
take-
walk, yeah. You take my shit, bitch?
Yeah, dropping it for you.
Yeah, we gotta go. They're fighting here in the fucking tunnel, holding and shit, dude. I'm moving towards it.
Yeah. Sashin, you good?
Yeah, should I craft 3 bats now or no?
No, no, no. I have 4. I have
No,
4.
we
We have a lot. We have a
Need
lot.
to go, I think.
Okay, okay.
Let's go.
They're fighting on all sides of us. Right side, left side, everywhere. We could even go for bridge here.
Whatever you feel like, bro.
Yeah, whatever you say.
I think we go for right side here. And see if we can third party someone. Because we could also play here, bro. On my ping. Which
Yeah.
is really good. Gold helmet here. And I got
Nice.
another bat.
I'll take the gold helm. Probably 2 syringes behind this box.
I have fucking 16 cells and 5 bats. You guys
Literally
need?
no one's playing over here on us. I
Yeah,
think.
that's really fucking good.
I have no medkit anymore. I want syringe.
I have 2 medkits. You want one?
I have
Yeah.
2 meds and 4 syringes.
Here. Boom.
Come play on me here.
Yeah.
We can even hit beak
You
again.
want to go up there?
No, no, no. I want you to come here and hit
30
beacon.
seconds.
I'll go up there.
Yeah. Okay, you go, yeah.
A lot of teams dead, dude. Dude, we have a lot of ways to play this.
Careful
It's-
stairs, please. I hate this place.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just gonna insta bubble you.
I'm
We're not gonna
tethering the
risk-
stairs. I literally tethered the stairs.
No one's playing here either. I think everyone's playing south side.
Yeah. Good. Good, good, good.
Wait, is there no one playing over? Never mind. They are. They're
A lot of
playing
them
there.
playing in the tunnel as
They're
well.
just looking at you, Tashin. I'm just gonna bubble you instantly.
Yeah, but we can play down here on my ping.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think this
There's
is
a
gonna
team
end
right
here,
there.
maybe.
Let's go. Boom. Hit that bitch.
Oh shit, bro. We could play here super late and Valkult over and third party someone. Like land below the snake here.
Yeah.
However you want.
Crypto,
Just
crypto.
take
Yeah, crypto thing. We need to get our armors up here.
You s-
Get to purple.
We get
Yeah,
fucked if we
okay.
play there, right? That high ground thing?
We can't
No,
play
no.
that. We can't play high ground. It's banned.
Why? No, it's not. Right,
It's
it's
a
not right here.
ban. No, it's a ban.
Oh, right there, it's there. I'm not talking about that high ground. I'm talking about that little, you know, that little ledge?
The little pocket high ground.
Yeah.
I mean, if we see it in the moment that it's not taken, we can play it, but we might get
Yeah.
fucking nated to oblivion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walking up behind me, walking up behind me.
Where?
Red one.
We can fight that. They're the only team on us. They're zipping up on you.
Coming up. What the fuck?
It's okay. Pull back a little bit. They're not in zone. Fuck. I hit one purple. I'm batting. They're all up there. We just play here on the beacon.
Here, went up.
Hey, they have purple armors. They're flying up here.
Purple. Give me
45 purple on one.
give me what's it called? Give me caustic
And Valk.
and Valk, yeah.
Try and get purples up.
Yeah.
38 purple and caustic.
Come on, nade one time up. There,
And-
I did it.
I'm almost purple. That was a good
Yeah.
name.
All three?
He walked on our right. Valkyrie walked on our right already.
She flew over there.
But who's
Oh,
this Valk then?
there. They're from the team downstairs.
Okay, okay, we gotta play safer then.
I got purple.
Okay, I'm
following
doing
that right
shots
here.
of purple.
I only have one bat, but
No, that's the same Valk from this team.
Oh,
He's
okay,
split
okay.
as fuck.
yeah, he is. He's right there.
We can fucking kill this idiot.
There's
Close
a
on
team
me.
downstairs
Close
here,
on
by the
me.
way.
Close on me, this fucking Valk, dude. Don't
Yeah.
let him do this shit. Caustic drop. Caustic fucking cracked. Caustic fucking cracked hard. I'm batting. In front of us, Caustic cracked hard. They're going to the tunnel. He's on us. Behind us.
New team.
Yeah, money. Bubble, bubble.
Yeah. Oh,
What the fuck?
I'm so confused. Is this safe? What the
not in though.
You can plug there. That team is gonna walk away. There's no way they keep. Okay, they're fighting you. Holy shit.
Do I just ult them?
Yeah, ult them. Get my banner. Plug in. It's zone 3. I can survive. I can loot myself.
There's a fucking player on top of us here.
You guys have to Valkult maybe then.
Here,
Go back
fucking
to fishing.
over there.
Come and Valkult from Banner's bubble. Valkult.
It's on to die here, I think.
Do you?
No.
Might.
No, we do. Yeah. Oh my god, dude.
We're letting them take so much on us. Like,
But there's a team down. There's a team on fucking what's it called? There's a team behind them. There's not shooting them.
they're not. They already walked
There
away
is.
clearly.
No, that's why they shot. Like
Yes,
there's no way
alright.
they just walk off for free.
That
dude.
Horizon was from the fucking team that came behind us. We should have fucking bubbled on him and fucking shit on him or something. Like, we let him fucking walk for free for fucking 10 years in the fucking open and just shoot us for 10 years.
Everyone's shooting us.
It's like
man.
we're not controlling shit. We're playing shit fucking angles and getting shit on.
I was playing left side and holding the angle there.
Like, we can't let these fucking dog shit fucking players do that to us.
Look
Ever.
at them. No, look at them. Look, there's a whole team behind them right there that didn't shoot a single time.
Yeah, but they came
And
late
there's a
and were
whole team
fucking hiding.
downstairs. Look at Lippin right now. That whole team was standing there and shooting.
I don't know
That's
how
what
we
I'm
get
saying.
fucking
They
angled.
just
And then
did not
a
beat a
team
single
walked
time.
up on us.
Fucking knocked
Holy
over.
shit, man.
Yeah.
And then a team walks up from all the way behind us and headshots me in the back while I'm popping a battery. Like, we could have also saved that if we were closer to each other, because we could have bubbled and rezzed and then healed in zone.
Me 26 damage. You couldn't even do anything. I'm just getting shot and I'm healing. Getting shot, I'm healing.
Bro.
We got no points for this game. Zero fucking.
Oh, dude, they're just ziplining up on you. Like, what the fuck, man? Is this pop game? Are we playing ranked here? Or
They're
what?
fucking
There's
dog shit
no
players.
shot they don't get shot on. Tell me a single time. Tell me a single time where we would ever walk up right there, completely free, and the guys down in tunnel don't peek us a single time. Tell me, please.
Fucking stupid, man.
That never happens. And how does it happen one time?
We should have played more towards the tunnel, I guess. It's so fucking stupid! Look what they're
see it.
doing! Pro players, by the way. They're landing on each other with fucking Valkults. Holy shit, man.
Like, that's free. Where they're playing is free. No, never mind. Oh no, there he got one shot. What happened there?
Look at them. Look what they're doing, bro. Like,
Look at
what
the
are
mess.
these?
Look at the mess.
Are these teams serious?
They just died, all of them. They just jumped down and died, these
Fucking
guys.
shit.
Yeah, no one's playing tunnel right now, apparently.
I can't. This lobby is probably the lowest quality lobby we've ever been part of in the fucking history of LGS.
Oh
Holy
my
shit, this
god,
lobby's
dude.
trash.
They save on the other side. Yeah. Stay here. Hello. Panic.
This lobby is actually fucking trash. How are they allowed to fucking do that? It's fucking...
That's what I'm saying. What we were doing was fine. There's no way they ever get the chance to walk up there. The team behind us, they fucked us. But,
I mean,
you know.
look how they're playing the game, bro, man. No wonder. Like, they're playing the game like a bunch of fucking idiots.
No way, you jumping, bro.
Who is that? What?
Holy shit,
I'm
we
so
could
pissed we die there.
we couldn't have played
no,
more
I'm
fucking
so
careful
pissed,
and...
I don't know, they should never be able to just walk up there just for free, you know?
It's so... That's never gonna happen on any fucking LAN ever. They just walk
What
up
the
to us.
fuck?
That was
Fix
last
the
game,
zip
that
up,
was
dude.
last game, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was last game.
What's the standings? Can I see that?
We don't know until the game ends.
No, but like before this.
We are 46 points right now. Wait, where are we? What is this shit? What am I looking at?
How are
We
they
got
alive?
0-point games, so we are at 46 points and we stay on 46 points in 4th place. Teams that are ahead of us that can do good are GMT, Ascend, and Hardeki's team. We don't care if they do good. We want them to do good. Teams
Yeah.
below us are ANC Outplayed. They fucking died. And Reply Totem, no idea what happened to them. And
No one just
Horizon
got
that we're
that's what I'm
spectating right now.
What?
Horizon needs 14 points to beat us. Well, 14 plus 15 because we win tiebreaker because we won a game. I
Wait,
think.
who?
I'm spectating
No, it's
Horizon right now.
alive. I'm
watching
lipping in Sab's bear.
I'm watching Horizon. They're literally bubbling in the middle of the open up the hill. They're sandwiched between like
Yeah, I
6
see them.
teams.
That's Sab's bear and those guys are there
If
too.
no one fucking kills them today, I will fucking mold. They're somehow surviving. This is fucking ridiculous. And now they have one of the best spots.
Samsung.
80k.
How about
How
Reply
are they-
Totem? How's Reply Totem doing?
I'm looking at Samsung right now. I don't know. GMT is inside a building, I think.
Okay, that's fine. We
No,
wanted
that
to
is
do it.
80k. That's 80k. 80k.
Is
The
that
snake
80K?
building. Snake building, yeah.
80k has fucking 9 points. We
That's
don't
7
fucking care.
points. We actually want them to do good too.
The only teams we care about are ANC Outplay that got fucking... They're dead. Reply Totem and Horizon. And Navi. If Navi gets a fucking gigantic game, they can...
How
get
many
ahead.
points do we get for a top 5?
15.
15? That would be 49 points total.
That would be good for
Yeah.
us.
Top 5. Holy shit.
Well, not top 5. Other teams are also gonna get points. Well, good thing Horizon and them are in a fucking shit spot. They have now, currently have 3 kills 5th. So they have 7 points. If they get 7 more, they're flying. With no help.
So sad. What a way of dying, man.
Come on, knock him, dude.
Please die. No, that was ridiculous how we're dying. Like 3 games today, how we died is just fucking stupidity.
Yeah.
Like, one is the one when you fell off the roof. Second one, what happened in the second game again? Yeah, we got careless and walked up. They walked up on us, and then
Yeah,
now
behind us.
this is bullshit. Like just when
That
you're
is
about to
bullshit.
fucking get in a spot.
Samsung, those guys are getting a lot of points right now.
Samsung,
Yeah, they're very far down.
where are they? I don't
They
even see them.
are... What?
I don't even see them. What name are they playing under?
SMS.
I don't see them.
Oh, he got Krabered.
80k might win here. They have a good spot. They're all healthy.
ITK needs a lot of fucking points to beat us.
Yeah.
Alright, they're fighting now.
I don't know. KNG, what about
He didn't
KNG?
bubble.
4
Jacob-
Kings died. Is 4 on us?
Yo, Jake is on controller now. 4, 6,
Oh yeah, Jake, yeah.
10.
Samsung is getting second, I think, this game.
Oh no, we need KNG to die now, because they could beat us. They have like good, they're dead.
Ooh, yes,
Oh, he
did
won
not.
this! He won
No.
this! He won! No!
Nice one. 80k
Who was
won.
that? Who was that?
80k won. 80k won. Was
No,
that
no,
against
who was that
Samsung?
other guy, Mandy?
I don't
That
know.
was Samsung.
Oh.
Okay,
Damn.
good. I think possibly if Reply Totem didn't get a lot of points and Horizon didn't get a lot of points, we could be 4th here.
Oh, it was good, dude. Please.
Wait,
At least
Morning
that.
Stars, they were at 24 points. How much kills
Wait,
did they
OP,
have?
Totem. Is that the people we... Yeah.
OP is they died
Okay.
to Horizon.
Oh yeah, so they didn't get more than us.
How much did the Morning Stars have? SMS.
They had 24. They did not get more than us.
So they needed like 22.
Yeah. Alright, who's OP and Totem? Alright, Totem is Totem. But who the fuck is OP?
OP is the control players. They died like...
Totem got 3, 10th. They got 5 points. They're not over us. Who's OP? They died early too.
12. Yeah.
What about Navi? They died early too. Fork? Fork gang.
4 gang is...
Or 1 kill, 4th place.
They died early too.
we got 4th.
SMS,
We got
they-
4th.
We got 4th.
We got 4th.
Oh my god, dude, my heart.
That was so fucking bad!
It's fucking annoying. No, dude, Disney,
Thank you.
I know you're frustrated that we're not holding, but there's no way in hell that is normal that he gets to walk